This episode of Scab Talk is brought to you by Lethal Gaming Gear. And welcome back to Scab Talk, everyone. Today's episode, we're going to be catching you up on the Tarkov news this week. That is very light. However, we do have many other topics to talk about. I, for one, has been getting into lots of random stuff this week. VR is on the agenda. My friends want me to play. There's so many cool VR games they want me to play, so I got a hold of a VR headset to talk about a little bit, and I've been looking into. It's kind of crazy, but keyboard manufacturers have now basically developed scripts to bypass game mechanics in your video games. We'll talk about that. Effectively cheating, but that's up for debate. Then we also got why use it's not Steam Audio. What is binaural audio when you can use your own substitution? We'll talk about that. GigaBeef has been working in the Big Pockets quest line. He's gonna give us an update on, and then following that, we got some little bit of a take from Landmark critiquing the barters in Tarkov, which will expand upon that.
All lovely, good stuff. Yes, it's been quite-ish for news. Not too much going on. I've been busy doing the bits and pieces. I spent all of yesterday morning putting together. I mean, I say putting together, but just like piecing together a new phone. It just takes ages to even if you do like the transfer service thing. I went from Samsung to Samsung, and I spent ages talking about it on stream yesterday. Even with that, it's like you move your Google account and all this kind of stuff from one place to another. There's just like lots of stuff to tidy up. Just things like you try to use this app and that didn't download, or this thing needs to update, or it doesn't have your login, and it's just like it took me like hours and hours and hours. But I eventually, I kind of bit the bullet. I was like looking at new phone for ages. What like got me to change was I've been using this Galaxy S8 for ever, but I inherited it off my wife, and the screen is cracked and the front camera is cracked over the lens, to the point, and it was just about manageable, to the point at which I got locked out of internet banking, because here in the UK now you do it on like facial recognition to do stuff on the phone, and it was just like, we can't do this anymore and you've been locked out of the app. So I actually couldn't even get in the app to do anything, which is really annoying. So I was like, I should probably get a new phone now actually. And yes, but I was like, I don't want to pay like 600 plus pounds, whatever, for like a new one. I don't really care. I'm so far behind anyway with the S8. So I think they're on what's it like, the S21 now or something. And I think the S8 was released in like 2014 or 15 or something. But I'm like, can't do everything I want it to do. So I like scoured around. I was like, right, let's put the Giga Min Max hat on, and I scoured around the internet and went to go and find something that was cool and interesting, and like looking at the local kind of repair shop kind of places, blah blah, and eventually stumbled upon like Amazon refurbs, which I'd like never even seen. And when I mentioned this on stream, loads of people were like, oh yeah, I've done this. Like, this is the great way to do it. And it's like not necessarily new phones, but there's like there's a price to kind of time curve of like, what do you call it? The like new, it's really expensive, and I can't remember what's that word for it? Not really depreciation. It is depreciation, but maybe it's. There's another word for it that I was trying to think of. But I was like trying to basically pick the point where it's like, after this certain point, you don't get that much extra benefit, because it's already so low now that you may as well pick one that's like 2 or 3 years ahead, because it's like, the difference between, I think you could get like a S, so the exact same phone as mine, you could get it for like £70, I think, £60, and an even earlier model you could get for like £40 or whatever. I'm like, but for 20 quid, right? It's just like not really worth going for even older stuff. And then so I settled for this, the S10e, which is 2 years later than my old one, but like still 3 years, 4 years, like out of date.
Okay.
And it was 115 quid. So I was like, that seems like good. That's like price to perfection. I think it's like most of the new stuff. Like I think it's only coming out of like end of support like in a year or so, but it'll still work for ages, I'm sure. And it came like basically pretty much pristine. There's like a tiny little scratch around where you put the charger in. Other than that, like it looks like brand new. It's crazy. So I was like, okay, this is good. So I'm back in my banking. But I went to try and do that. Yeah, there was like lots of chat on my stream about just like min-maxing IRL as well as in game, which is quite funny. So I spent all yesterday morning doing that.
I'm just like amazed at how expensive phones are. Like I personally can't imagine paying like $500, let alone like $1,000 for some of these phones. I mean, they're like luxury plus. But yeah, it was just like, man, I mean, I'm not really a heavy phone user, so that's probably a major factor. Like I think this is an
Yeah.
iPhone 8. I don't even know. It's like a hand me down from like so long ago. Yeah, and I just like I just don't even use the phone that much. Like I I don't even know what I would do on a phone. You know what I mean? It's just like I would just rather use a computer. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. If you're like around at home a lot and like if you're not playing games on the phones, then
Mm-hmm.
you don't really need it to be super powerful. Like that's the thing. I use my phone quite a bit, but just around the house and it's not for anything particularly taxing, right? It's just like news or
Right.
Google
Right.
Drive or like writing down ideas and looking up stuff on the internet. Like it's nothing crazy. It's nothing that
Mm-hmm.
phones
Mm-hmm.
4 years ago couldn't do, right? Like you could still do it with one of the original, a Galaxy S2s or 3s or whatever. It's like the functionality that I use it for hasn't really changed since then. So yeah, exactly. It's more just like actually be able to keep up with the updates and stuff. So yeah, I was just trying to transfer everything over this morning over but all the like extra stuff so I don't have to look at it again. Quite good. But I wanted to do it before it actually like broke because my last one actually broke. And the way that the Android phones, or at least the Samsung ones are now, like the internal SD card is like locked in with encryption. So if the phone breaks,
Oh.
like you just lose access to everything that was on the internal memory, which is like really annoying.
Ew.
There's no way. There's no way in, right? And the chip is like hardwired into the system, and even if you got it out, like you don't have the mechanism to
Mm-hmm.
encrypt it or whatever. Because I looked at it because I was like, I had some things in there that were kind of annoying to
Oh, like
lose.
contacts?
No, because that's all saved to your Google account. It was other stuff. I had like some like just notes written down for certain things that I hadn't got them like backed up or
Okay.
anything. They weren't in any cloud service, and I was like,
I
that's a pain
see.
to lose those. And then anything from WhatsApp, because on the standard Android,
Mm-hmm.
WhatsApp can't write to the SD card when it sends photo. I don't know why. It's really annoying. It's like one of the
Hmm.
most. It's one of my biggest gripes actually about a phone because I put all my photos on the SD card, but WhatsApp won't put it on the SD card, and I don't know why. There's some restriction. It won't do it. So all the WhatsApp stuff is all. If you take it and it's only in WhatsApp, it's only going to be on the internal card. So then if the phone dies, anything that you took like that is gone forever. You can do. So I've avoided that. Trying to avoid that going forward. So yeah, it's technology. It's just it just is a thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like spending as much on a phone as like an actual GPU makes me a
Yeah,
bit sad. So
I I just couldn't do it. I mean, I'm sure for like people who use their phone a lot
of
or
course,
whatever, and the newest features, it's like, yeah. But for us
yeah,
boomers.
because I actually used to have a good phone, but I think it was because
Mm-hmm.
the way the market like changed. I mean, this is obviously super off topic, but the way the market changed is like you used to be on contract and it was actually a good deal for a long time. And then the contracts got more and more and more and more expensive. And they're all on like a
Mm-hmm.
2 year basis. And now they're so expensive that you're better off doing like a SIM only deal. I think it's because SIM only was quite expensive, right? To have like data and stuff like in the early like 2010 to
Mm-hmm.
2015
Mm-hmm.
era, like to have like a lot of data on a SIM only deal was actually quite a lot of money. And so it didn't really like you're like, well, I may as well pay for the phone through the contract because they're kind of bundling it all in together and the phone, like it all kind of came together. Whereas now it's like you look at the 24 months and you're like, damn, this contract cost me £60 a month for 2 years, right? It's just like that's actually a lot. Like I can get a SIM only deal for, £5. So like the spread between those two things has widened a lot. And so you're now more justified in like buying your own phone cheaper rather than going, oh, I'll buy the flagship new one that's just come out through the contract because I am really paying for it, but just every month over a 2 year period. And that seemed to change a little bit, but I think it's kind of hard to go backwards. I think I was quite lucky that my S7 lasted for like so long because I basically just like slowly just automatically slipped back and back and back and back as all these other new phones came out and I just never upgraded. So then I'm not feeling like I'm taking a step back. I'm in fact taking a two-year step forward by buying this one that's like super cheap. So it's good if you can get yourself in that pattern, then hopefully it'll work out. So yeah, what we've been doing this weekend in Old Tarkov. So the event was over, the old event where Prapor Peacekeeper were having their turf war. That finished. Weirdly, there's one achievement for both task lines. So in the last one that they did, where you had to help Skier or help Peacekeeper or help Lightkeeper with the phone, you got a reward based on what you actually did. So I've got like the local strongman one for skier. In this like arms race one, everybody just got the same one, regardless of which side you picked. There was just one achievement for participating in the event. And then you received the reward that it said in the quest. So basically, Prapor people got a PKM or PKP. I think it was a PKP. A lot of people wanted that for the gunsmith task, funnily enough. But there was the PKP and a like ton of ammo, loads of ammo, PS, BT, BS ammo as well, which is like finally made only. So that was for the Prapor people, and then Peacekeeper guys got the big pipe GL and like a bunch of grenade launchers for that. So
Oh,
there's
that's
been people
cool.
running around with GLs. So you got like the semi-auto drum grenade launcher, what they got, and then because Peacekeeper won, you can now on Peacekeeper 1 get the grenade launcher. It is available for it is $9,002. So it's a lot of money. I mean, that's equivalent to 9,002, and I think the exchange rate's about 140 at the moment. So that's like 1.2 million rubles. So it's a lot of money, right? But you can get that. It's on Peacekeeper 1, so you can buy that and run around with it if you want to. I was actually, because I hadn't really looked at it until today, but you can get the ammo that I didn't think, because it was banned for a long time. I didn't think you could get it, but it seems to have come back. So like the M381 HE grenade,
Yeah.
that's the short one, the 8 to 10 feet one. That's $302 per shot, but it is on Peacekeeper, interestingly.
Yeah, because that's like deemed the good one, correct?
Yeah, I think there's two that are deemed the good one. It's that one. It's basically the ones with one at the end. There's the M381 HE and the M441 HE. And those are both the short fuse version.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the difference is between the two. I'm sure you could look it up on Wikipedia, but
I think it's some largely irrelevant
in this
statistical,
game, yeah.
like,
Yeah.
shrapnel versus explosive range or something. I
Something
can't
like that.
remember.
But both of these are available on Peacekeeper now, which they were not before.
Yeah, and then the one that was always available was it just straight up cash purchase? It's been a while since I've looked at
Yeah,
this.
just catch purchase. There's two of them that are on the flea. There's the M406 HE, which is the long range one, which is the one you normally see, and then the M386. So those are both 45 to 90 meter ranges.
But
They
those are
they were
flea
always they were
exclusive.
purchasable. Well, they're Peacekeeper as well. They're on
Oh,
Peacekeeper and they're
okay.
on the flea market. Apparently, there's a mechanic barter for it as well. And it's grayed out here, but I don't have access to it.
Let's see,
Apparently, there's
we're gonna have
another
to.
one which is I don't know. It's weird. Like there's a load of random barters, which I think maybe are like hangovers. So there's like a couple of grayed out ones. There's one from Peacekeeper at $370. There's one at $74. And to be fair, those ones are probably new. So the ones that are on the flea now, the $74 one from Peacekeeper and the other version, the $102, those are probably new. Those probably got added. I mean, I've not been paying attention to HE grenades, but those were probably added when the grenade launcher was added to Peacekeeper 1. I would guess.
Yeah.
And because you can see that there's like Mechanic has one for 12,000 rubles, which I'm pretty sure was in there previously, and then Peacekeeper's got one for $370 per shot, as well as a $74 one. So those must be the real ones, quote unquote. I don't have access to them because I haven't done the quest for them apparently. And then the other one, yeah, the M406, that one has just got the Peacekeeper purchase, doesn't have anything else. So
Oh, this is interesting, Giga. So I'm on the Tarkov wiki, and there's a note here about the M386 HE grenade, and it says there's no purchase option left around on mechanic despite the flea market having listed for it. This is left over from the event quest failed setup.
Oh, right. I don't remember which one that was.
This looks like it was the Halloween event with the TVs. With the let's see, eliminate 30 of the group responsible for the marked circles. Oh, is this the one where you're
With the cult, with the ritual
summoning?
one.
Yeah, the summoning.
Yeah, must be the summoning one.
That was a cool event. I like that one.
Yeah.
But
Does it say
anyways,
that there's a purchase otherwise? Does it say that there's
sold by
another
Peacekeeper
one?
3 after completing this task, worst job in the world.
Oh, that must be okay, that must be the $370 one then. And then the mechanic one is then spurious apparently. And then there's a new one at $74, which is I think is just open to everybody.
Okay.
They probably haven't added it on because it's like end game for the event. It's probably going to disappear because the grenade launcher's on Peacekeeper 1 as well for 1 million rubles. So it's like kind of whatever. But yeah, also interestingly, everybody, because everyone got the same achievement, they didn't really track it. Everybody gets access to the nade launcher too. So it's not like Peacekeepers people got like I think that's
Right.
fine. I think
Yeah,
that's
that's probably
fine.
fine for balance reasons.
Yeah,
Might
like
be a
it'd be
little
really
like,
annoying, right?
yeah.
But yeah, so everybody got access to it, which is good. Yeah, I hear GL's going off relatively frequently. You know, lots of people have 100+ mil, so
Yeah.
$9,000 is not really that much for people just to have like a mess about.
Right.
So yeah, there's quite a few of those. Not that I even think they're necessarily that good, to be honest. It's like, yes, those nades are now available on Trader, but even the short fuse ones, it's like, how many can you buy? 3 of one and 3 of the other. That's it per reset. So you could stock up and go into raid, but it's also awkward to use, right? Because like each grenade takes up a slot, like a grenade does. So it's a bit of a pain. You can't
Yes.
take that much ammo in. It's not like you can
Yes.
take like a full bag of ammo. There's no like mag to put them in or anything like that. Um, yeah, it's intriguing. Actually, I wonder. I just had a really like random thought, which, a classic Giga random thought, which is that the M32A1 40mm cylinder, which is part of the loot pool, that
Oh,
costs. You can buy one of those at 28,000. That can hold 6 grenades,
he's
but
cooking.
it's only a 2x2, I believe.
Yes.
So you can bring in extras through this and just do like and unload them from the cylinder as you go to increase the amount that you can carry by 50% if you bring enough stuff with 2x2 slots or whatever. You can just put them in your backpack and have them like 6 in a 4 slot.
Yeah, I wonder if it will let you. I don't know. Because sometimes these revolver magazines won't be like changeable in
Or
raid.
unloaded or well, no, but you can't change them. But I mean, like it's just a place to store the ammo.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Oh, wow.
Just take
That's really clever.
like 4 of them and then have 6 grenades in each one in a 2x2 square. So you can take like a ton more ammo.
Yeah, there might be something to that. Unironically, it's
Quite
funny.
funny. That'd be quite
Can
funny. Yeah,
you?
because they're part of the loot pool. They're like 30k each. Things.
Now I'm like, really? This is not something you should do. But can you not bring in a cylinder and just put? I guess you couldn't, and just like manually load a single round in.
I don't know if that works or not.
Is it a? It's got to be a functional. Like a what's the word? A necessary item. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine that would make it like dysfunctional isn't the word,
Right.
but you know,
Yeah. Yes.
not functional. If you just go edit preset and would delete it, yeah, it doesn't work without it.
Okay. Okay.
It's a red component. It's a necessary component.
I was just curious because I saw the stats is like, yes, it does reduce recoil by 1. Not that that matters, but -10 ergonomics. Like, huh? Maybe what if you could, get some more
Maybe I'll
ergonomics?
just not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's funny. But anyways,
that's funny.
I
Yeah, so that's an interesting little thought experiment.
I find I just find it. I think landmarks said this before or critique this anytime that this GL stuff comes up because there is like a segment. It used to be they've done a pretty good job at like making it more restrictive, but I still just find that it's just odd to me that it's locked behind some quests, the actual grenade
Yeah,
cartridge, because I think we said what wet job part something, or no, worst job in the world is what.
which is quite an annoying one to be honest, but
Yeah, but it's like, I'm not saying don't put the any grenades on the trader, but why do we gotta put the best one on there? It's like that seems like a good candidate for found in raid only, whereas like all the other crap ones are found in raid only. It's like I don't, you know what I mean? It's like why I'm never gonna pick some of these other ones. Like literally, okay, I'm
yeah,
like literally look at this other M433 HEPDD. It has the same damage, right? It has the same penetration, not that that matters, same armor damage. Uh but it just has a lower range explosion radius, like 1 to 5 versus 1 to 7. And Oh, I guess it has 15 F1 shrapnels versus 10 M67 shrapnels. I didn't know that. I wonder if that's like, and the explosion stream's different. I don't even want to know like the actual speculation on effectiveness between that. I mean, the damage alone. Oh, I guess the damage alone isn't enough to kill someone because it's probably like. I wonder how that works. 190 damage. Like, is it an AOE? So, like, if you get hit by it, does it? If you're in the radius of this 190 damage, do you take the full on 90, 199 to like every part that's touched, like clipped by this radius? Does the
Kind of scales, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would imagine it would scale. I don't know.
That's why you normally get headshot by these things, because the head goes to 0 first.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. Yeah, because it's only a 35 HP pool. That's
mm.
interesting, but nonetheless, I just feel like, man, like there ought to be a little more. I guess there's not like a ton of play here. Like I'm looking at it. Oh wait, I have to see the arming distance because that's the big one where it's like if one has an arming distance of essentially, or is it fuse time? Oh, it's fuse time, like 0.04 seconds, right? This thing's ready to go instantly. So it's like
Yeah.
pretty effective, whereas some of these other ones,
That is quite long.
yeah, that one's only 0.25. That's not a problem. That's also 0.25. I guess a lot of these are 0.25. It's oh, but I guess relatively speaking, 0.25 sounds slow, but when the projectile is moving at 75 meters a second,
Mm.
you
It's
know,
quite a distance. Yeah.
it's quite a distance. Yeah.
Like it's not that far. What was it like? I think like practically it was like 30 meters or something.
Mm-hmm. But still, like 30 meters, like, you know what I mean? If I'm gonna, it's like,
Maybe less. Maybe it was like 20. Maybe it was like 17 or something.
yeah, even then, it's like, even like versus, 2 meters or whatever it
Yeah.
would be, is like, man, it's just like, why is the 2 meter one on Peacekeeper? That seems like the S tier option in most cases. Maybe that's just
Yeah.
a subjective thing. I don't
I'm
know.
just going to defend them here and say like it wasn't available before. This is just like a
Okay.
meme for the end of wipe. Like I'm though they weren't on there. They
Oh,
were only.
really?
I'm pretty sure. As I
Okay.
said, I haven't been checking. I think that must have just been added. It must have been the purchase.
But this one says worst job in
Or
the
is it actually
world.
on? Oh wait, but which one is that?
That's the M386 with an arming
That's not the
distance.
short one though, is it?
Oh, it's not. You're right. Okay, so they must have changed this. My mistake then.
Yeah.
Because it
So
used
I
to
think the
be.
short ones were only Funny Raid,
Okay, I think you're.
as far as I
I see
understand.
your. Yes, I think you're
I think
right.
they just added them just for memes.
Okay, okay. Very good then.
Yeah, which makes it kind of alright.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is much. This yeah. I have no. I'm totally cool with it. I see because yeah, I mean it's been. It's one of those things where people, you know, they came out and they were like popular in labs. Remember it was just like, and everyone's like groping, this ruined, killing the game. It's like, I mean, eventually we're gonna get what, like claymores, deployable claymores.
Oh god.
Giga just puked it, metaphorically, of course. Uh, yeah, I mean, it's
We see
probably
these things come and go, right?
yeah, and they do, to their credit, it may not be the quickest, but they try to get them in some form of balance, and like, yeah, I mean, just here now, I'm learning. I mean, even then, it's like, because then didn't the actual GL used to be just straight up cash purchase? It was like no quest, or maybe it was just barter and it was no quest. It was just like Peacekeeper
No,
4.
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but
But the
now they've like,
UBGLs are kind of bad, in my opinion.
yeah, they're not.
They're just for they're just for fun. The problem they're not actually good. This is the
Because you have
thing.
to swap to it,
You
right?
have to swap to it. There's no like the aim is like really weird. They just and
Yeah.
then like half the time you hit somebody right next to them and there's a small twig and it blocks all of the blast damage and they just bunny hop over and don't die.
Yeah.
and it just doesn't do what you'd expect it to. Because they had to nerf the grenade radius like a few times, and so now it just feels really underpowered for what it should be. It got hit with the nerf bat and then the availability bat both at the same time. I don't know. They balanced it out of the game pretty much. There's like quite a few things like that in Tarkov these days, where it's just like these things are quote unquote good, but they're just like not. They just don't feature in the game. It's like T7s. Oh, we'll balance up by making it 17 million rubles. Okay, and then like the one that's probably okay is like the KS23 flash thing. That was because that was like really toxic for a long time. People hated that.
Yeah.
And you do see them every now and then, but like you can't buy that without doing like some annoying quests, and then you have to craft it. I think maybe is it craft only now? I can't remember.
I think so. Yeah.
So that's like, and you make 7. I think there is maybe a way to buy it, but I can't remember actually.
I think once you finish the quest, then you can buy them. I think, which is not very helpful. Unless you want to meme with them.
Just sort of grief people.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to complete Counteraction or Our Own Land, the one where you kill like 20 bears or 20 USECs on Lighthouse.
Oh, yeah.
Then you can buy them, I think. But then there's also a Workbench 3 craft that takes like, I actually kind of like this. This is sort of, maybe we'll take a very small detour away here. But it's 4 hours and 35 minutes and it makes you 7. And you don't have to do the Lighthouse quest for that one. But that's kind of interesting because it's like, oh, you have this like uber utility item for doing factory stuff or doing this particular quest. But you only get 7 and it takes 4 hours. And it's quite expensive. So that's sort of interesting. It's like you can get it, but not much. And there's a big cost to it in terms of time. And then you have to, like do it again if you're if you don't manage to do it in that time. And like it reminded me of something that I can't remember exactly who it was. I think maybe it was like Deep Space on my chat the other day. We were talking about availability and access and stuff, and maybe we'll talk about some of this a little bit later because I've got some thoughts on it if we have time. And there was a suggestion of making like almost like a sniper's craft. Like getting sniper ammo right now is like really annoying. You basically are stuck using SMB, I think.
I see where they're
Whereas
going. Yeah.
maybe you could make a sniper's craft, maybe like M993, and it takes 40 minutes, but only makes you like 5.
Yeah,
or something.
That would be interesting.
So it takes a bit of time.
Yeah.
So you can't just like spam it. And then the thing is, you want to balance it so that it's not like you don't get 1 in a 24-hour period. But it's but you couldn't. Something where it would be unreasonable to just like farm the thing for a long time and then use the MDR or something like that. This is what's problematic.
If you really wanted to, I guess you could, but like you said, it's just like unreasonable.
So I was trying to think like what balance would that even what do you even have to do to make it like sensible? Because 1 per day is obviously too low. Like that's too low even for bolties. So what would you say like I was thinking like what 5 in an hour?
Like 5. Oh, in an hour?
Is that too long?
What
were you thinking? Like
I was thinking
shorter?
like 4 hours.
4 hours. Okay, yeah, okay. You weren't thinking shorter. Good. Well, at least we're in the sort of I was just saying okay, 4 in like 4 hours. So you're not gonna be able to get it straight away. You might do it overnight. You might leave, come back, get that. Yeah, because otherwise, if it's like even if it's only 5 in an hour and you're there like most of the day, just passively, you'd be making like 40, 50 in like 10 hours or something. But like that's actually quite a lot. You can like top load like a bunch of mags and use its like full auto relatively easily. So yeah, that's the thing. I don't know. Yeah, like 5 in like 4 hours. It's like you got to use it for a very specific purpose. Then you're only realistically making like at most 20 per day. That's hard to use full auto.
Oh yeah. I mean, that would take you multiple like weeks, like 2 plus 3, maybe a month to like have a kit just full of M993 MDR, 25 rounds in every 25 rounder mag in your, so I mean, I kind of hate that that's like what, my first instinct is like, we can't make it an hour because, the not to be disparaging, but the no-lifers will spam the craft, and then people will complain because the no-lifers have the time to like spam the, you know what I mean? And that's like, it sucks. Like one critique that I've kind of always had, and it's almost like in this case we're talking about it, it's like effectively kind of a balancing way, is like making the craft kind of like annoying. Like if you make it 30 minutes, then it's kind of like a efficient craft, or like a, what's another word for this, convenient craft, because then you
Mm.
like play a raid, assuming you play like a decent portion of a raid. I guess scav would be, not quite short enough of a craft, but let's say a PMC raid and you do like a 30-minute raid on streets, and you could just like kind of grind out that same craft over and over. You know what I mean? Like, whereas like some of these crafts, it's like, oh, it's like 3 hours, 3.5 hours, or 3 hours and 43 minutes. And it's like, well, I'm gonna play for the rest of the night. And it just so happens like, you know, it's like 3 hours and 20 minutes. You just like had a string of bad raids, and you're like, I want to get off, but if I just wait, if I just play one more raid in 20 minutes, and I can start that craft again that I need, so I'll just push through and suffer. It's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. So I almost wonder if, one thing I've thought of is like, what if they had a, like, because yeah, if they had a system where it's like, one of this item, to get one of this item you need these components, and then it's a like a slider, and you can slide to get more of that items, and then the components and everything else like scales with it. You know what I mean? Where you, and the time
Mm.
scales up. So like if it's, let's say it's one bullet, I guess it can't be one. Let's say it's 10 bullets of, let's just stick with N993, right? And for 10 bullets, it takes you, I don't know, 2 hours. I don't know, whatever, it doesn't matter. 2 hours, and it takes a green gunpowder. What else does it take? It takes M80, 10 N80s as well. What's an expensive barter item that we can retrofit into this
I
weird?
don't know, with thermite or something.
Yeah, it takes a third. Yeah, actually, that's a good one. It takes a thermite. Um, sure, right. So now, if I want to do like a 24-hour craft, what I say, two? So that now I need to get like slide this slider up to 12, and then so everything gets scaled up by 12, which, like, it would be the same as if you did it manually, except it's automated, so I don't have to like go in, restart, collect the items, or restart
Mm.
the hideout, buy the items. It's like, that's way more convenient from like an end user perspective, but like for a balancing perspective, the inconvenience is a part of the balancing in a way.
Yeah, you're quite right, because you could have the same ammo per hour
Mhm.
and have it be 1, 10, 50, 200, right?
Mhm.
And everything's scaling. And it makes a big difference. As you say, one, you could hit in between a scav run every time, or every time you open up, you just hit the craft. Okay, easy. But overnight, you can only make a limited number. There's just nothing you can do. Longer craft, like you're not going to get any during the actual stream or whatever, but you can, or like your play session, but you can do it at the beginning of your play session. Maybe you'll pick it up like at the end of the day or whatever later on if you come back, and then you can like hit it again overnight. And that actually probably gets you more per hour because it's more like passive. You know what I mean? So like it's definitely part of the balance, which is like kind of interesting. Because I was like wondering, like, yeah, how do you actually decide to do that? Do you say like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna have like 5 and it takes you 4 hours, or is it like an hour but you get one? You just get one bullet, that's it. It's like kind of interesting. It's like, yeah, interesting to think about. It like changes the dynamic about it. It's like the shorter it is, as you said, it almost caters more to the people who are like no lifing, because like you have to be at your computer to like restart it. Whereas if
Yes.
it's 10 bullets in 8 hours, it's like, okay, well, you're only going to do that like once per day, really, or like twice, maybe twice. Um, Even though it's efficient,
Mhm.
because there's no slowdown in between those times. Again, it's like slightly fairer. I don't know. It's actually quite tricky. It's quite a tricky
Yeah.
balancing thing.
Because I almost
Um,
feel like the changes they've made with the crafting times, they're all like kind of like within the, 0 to 4 hour range. I'm trying to, I mean, there's like a few exceptions. I guess like
yeah,
the,
but some are a bit long, but like yeah, they're normally like the most is normally like 6 or 7 hours now. Like they changed it a lot. Like ammo used to be like 14 hours or something.
yes, yeah. Which
Now
like,
it's like much shorter.
I almost feel like the 4 hour is, it's nice, but if you're like, if you could only play once per day, like for some people, like I have like friends that I played with that I guess they like worked in accounting and work from home, so like they could basically be, as long as they got their stuff done, they were good, right?
Mm.
But like they could have effectively be on Tarkov and working at the same time. So like, and
Well, yeah,
on
definitely.
Tarkov doesn't necessarily mean you're like raiding and talking in comms. It could be scav raiding, hideout, flea marketing stuff. And this was like especially true back before. Oh man, this hit Tarkov's history, but this this is especially true back when Found Raid wasn't a thing, which
Mm.
we kind of have that now. I even messaged him the other day. I was like, "Have you seen the changes? Are you gonna come back to Tarkov?" He's like, "No, I finally escaped." He was a long, like the wipe. I would be done with the wipe, and then he would still be going. Like I would just see him. He'd be on night interchange probably, the GPU up his butt, running to the extracts. Classic. But anyways, yeah, it's very intriguing. Like I think it is interesting because the 14-hour crafts were like kind of annoying, especially considering that you only got like BP. Like what was it? I mean, BP was pretty good because you got like 120 if I recall
Yeah, but like
for 14
PS12B, I think you
hours.
got like 80 or 60 or something. It was like
Yeah,
not much.
and
You
like
couldn't
for
really use it.
exactly like for 14 hours, I'm gonna get something that like at best I could like carry three rounds in and have like 20 in my butt. It's like,
Mm.
or three mags in, excuse me. It's just like it's not a good feeling. So the way they've scaled it now, where you do get more ammo in general, um, for less time like spent. And I mean, sometimes it's not like, I think some of them are like what, 60 for 4 hours. Excuse me.
Depends which one.
Yeah, I wonder if I can just see all the crafts. I guess it would have been. Oh yeah, I have to do
There is a
hideout.
page for crafting.
Yeah. Oh, there is. You're right. Yes, you're right.
Got its own special page. I think it's called crafts as opposed to crafting. I think crafting relates to the skill. I've been here the other day.
Yeah, I was gonna say you have some expertise in this area, don't you? Let's see. Workbench. And it's just like it's so hard to keep up with this stuff.
It is.
So I need some ammo. Um, I think actually too, for this time, jumping back to what got us here, the flash rounds. I'm pretty sure
Mm.
I went and I think I'd have to like pull up the game to verify, but I'm pretty sure I made an effort to do that quest line to unlock it from
Mm-hmm.
the trader, because I felt like I didn't want to grind that quest out in the event that I failed with the 7 that you get per craft, which is an interesting, it's not my favorite thing. Like doing that quest is not. I think I'm Bear because that's the one where you have to. Yeah, so I got it from Prapper. So our own land, which for Bear is 20 PMC operatives and 20 tags, which is like probably easier than the inverse if you're
Yeah, because trying to
USEC.
get the bear one is like very tough. And also,
Yes.
that quest, I think it's just easier to use the barter personally. Like counteraction. I still have 3. I've played quite a bit of Lighthouse. I still have 3 bear kills to go.
It's the barter.
Is
Oh, you
that
mean the craft?
yeah? So on if you're USEC, you have to do counteraction, which is on level 4 Peacekeeper. So it's easier for bear a little bit than it is for USEC. And then there's just like so many more USEC operators. You see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I haven't even finished that one. It's like killing 20 bears for me basically means killing 60 PMCs
Effective.
in
Yeah.
effect,
Yeah.
which is a
Yeah.
lot, right? Whereas like
Right.
killing 20 USEC is like killing 30 PMCs. It's like half. The
I
quest is
would
like
say maybe like
twice
25.
easily. Yeah, it's like so much easier, and it's
Mm,
lighthouse as well, right? It's like bears void lighthouse in the first place. So that
that's
map has got
true.
like I'm thinking of just the basic skew between the two. USEC is all over lighthouse because bears hate playing on it. So yeah, as I said, I've got 3 more of those to do, and it's 20 dog tags, and I didn't want to do it. So I haven't done that one, so I always do the craft instead. But I think that's fine, right? They give you two different options of what to do.
Yeah.
Do the craft, you get 7, unlock the thing, and then you can buy it for a reset. That's kind of like a nice balance, I think. I think that's quite good. What are we talking about? We've gone like highly off topic here. So we were talking, yeah, okay, because we were talking about the grenade launcher and about things that are, what's able to be purchased or crafted or whatever. Yeah, I've been thinking about a lot of these things recently. Just before we do that, BSG did a armor mechanics changes short video for some reason. I don't really know why. They've been adding a lot of these tutorials and things to the homepage, the launcher, to teach new people about the game. And they did this one about the change that they did to the plates. But, this is like a lot later. It's quite interesting. I think them posting it actually got people confused, being like, wait, did something change? Like, what happened? Like, this was like 2 months ago or something like that. And everyone's like, no, it's just BSG actually explaining what they did. It's just like a nicer version of the graphic that Nikita posted. And that's it, really. Like, all of these mechanics have already been explained by various people, Ewing, me, whoever. It's already been tested. We've done all this stuff. Nothing changed. They just posted it out for people who, I guess, weren't necessarily watching all that stuff, or I don't know. Not sure. But yeah, it's good that they continue to produce their own, I guess, like work for this, like their own content for this kind of thing. But it's never going to be that timely, I imagine. So it'll never really replace the work of thems like me.
Yeah. Yeah, because I wonder, I mean, it'd be interesting to know, like, who's in charge of doing this. Like, I imagine it just gets assigned to someone who has this talent, like maybe it's multiple people. I don't know. It's interesting. I think it's the I put this in our notes because I just thought, it's interesting that they did this because it's also in a short format.
Yeah.
Which I guess this is serving as like marketing, possibly like reaching, because BSG does a lot of, the marketing that they do is on social media, like BK, which I guess is like Russian Facebook effectively. I'm not really sure, but a lot of like social media stuff, like it's formatted like this is made, the video aspect ratio is made to be consumed on mobile, right? And they do all those like funny shorts and whatnot. And yeah, I don't know. I guess it's like maybe they saw value in doing this. Like, it's someone's it's someone's job to do this, and someone delegated this, so they think it's valuable. But I think it's very interesting that the people are still divisive as ever, as is the Tarkov community, right? I mean, you can't have divisivity without having Tarkov in the same sentence. And yeah, it's just interesting, the so many split opinions, and I don't know if there's a right answer to be had, but I will say it is pretty comical that we went from like one, dare I say, extreme to another extreme, and then back to the old extreme. I mean, it's like it's different, right? But it's just, I don't know. It's like seeing this visual aid that they have here. The surface area between the old plate system and the new plate system is like the difference, especially in the front plate hitbox, is massive. Like looking at this thing, it's like, oh my god, that plate like grew like 250%.
Yeah, it's crazy. You just classic argument or debate between each side, and it's usually about the old system meant everybody could compete versus the old system meant that gear and progression was meaningless versus gear and progression now matters against if I don't have that much time to play. Now it's just very, very difficult for me to win. It's just two ends of the same line.
Yeah.
Neither are wrong. Both things can be true. Right? A lot of these things are all true at the same time. Like the fighting system feels more consistent now. Correct. The fighting system means that it is harder for less experienced or lower playtime players to beat more experienced playtime players. This is also true. Right? That's kind of what consistency means, right? If I'm wearing better armor than you, it means that you actually win less often.
Yeah.
Now you've got class 4 and I've got class 6. You're fighting a more uphill battle now, because that's what consistency is, right? It's the variance and the variability is what made the level playing field between the lower grade players and the high, or like lower geared players and the higher geared players. That's kind of what that was about. I had like lots of conversations on my stream, some relatively heated about, why should players who put the time in be punished? And it's like, it's not really about that. People get so like, people don't take a step back and they think about it like so much from their own, through their own lens of like, why are you punishing me? Like, why are you out to get me? You're like out to like hamper my fun, my experience. And it's like, you need to think more like generally about the whole system. Like you lie on a continuum somewhere, right? And like you have this advantage or that advantage or that advantage or that advantage already. So this extra advantage here is like not really needed, and there could be what's the whole like maximizing global happiness or whatever by like making your life a bit harder, which actually might end up in improving, like making it more consistent, and making your life harder might actually make it more enjoyable for you or whatever, right? I don't know. It depends. So it's just tricky. It's just very, very tricky. So I don't know. We'll see. Like there's just so many moving parts to this, right? And this is like, again, I keep feeling like I'm almost about to veer into this topic, but I guess we'll probably do that now, because we've talked about this at length before. But like the change in the armor system, plus the way that the game is, it's kind of two things, right? It's like the new mechanics, plus the way that the game is structured in terms of item acquisition has kind of put us into this weird state in the end game. And Landmark put out a video. I was joking with Church about this beforehand. Landmark put out a video which is his usual type of video where, what's Landmark's take on, like the Bastion plate or like some of these end game items. And he talks for, I don't know, 40 seconds about the topic, maybe like a minute about the topic. Basically says be able to use these items in raid every single like raid is probably like too much. But then he kind of gets caught up in a fight, and then the rest of the video is just him fighting people, which is like entertaining, and that's fine. We don't really get to hear like enough out of conversation. So I am like kind of putting together something at the moment. I've been like delving into this, and we keep touching on it, right? Because it's what people keep talking about. It affects everything. It affects the way that people perceive the end game. It affects people's like boredom about not having things to do. And we've talked about it a million times. I've already talked about the cult termite plate before and that kind of thing. And the Bastion plate kind of comes through with this too. It's like, it's so complicated. I've been trying to organize my thoughts. It's actually been very difficult. I'm like writing a script at the minute, and it's like, I'm probably halfway through, but there's like lots of pieces, like Lego pieces that I want to like click into here, because I've never really sat down and thought about it systematically, or at least I haven't for a while. And the first thing that I was thinking about with this whole situation was like the meta loadout, right? Okay, what does the meta loadout look like? It's Bastion helmet, Bastion plate on the top. You've got with the Death Shadow face mask, the condors on, and you've got an AACPC with the cult termite in the front, 2 class 6 plates in the side, and then maybe a GAC in the back, or maybe another class 6. Right? I had somebody the other day running cult termite front and back, and I was like, man, you balling. Like that's like you balling out of control. That's crazy.
I remember when it used to be a GAC in the front and what was it?
And a monoclete in the back.
Yeah. Now it's a GAC in the back, which has got a nice little ring to it.
Now the GAC's gone to the back. So but then they've got a spear on MDR, and it's like that's the player that you see if they're level 50 plus. Chances are they're wearing that. It's either that.
Accurate.
It's either that, or it's the guy wearing like, I don't know, a TV-110 with an MP7 and a CQCM face mask, right? It's like those are the two archetypes, right? Those are the two. Which group do you fall into? One or the other. Well, the one's normally like a labs player type person, and the other person's like a streets player type person,
right?
Like streets guy has got like the spear and the Bastion plate, and then you've got like labs guy is like CQCM with the MP7. It's like really fast, plays like super quick. And has like class 4 armor on.
And as is the spear guy and the India guy also have a LPVO mounted onto it, right? I mean, the spear comes with it, but like mandatory to have that, right?
yeah. Either the spear or the MDR with like a voodoo or something. So it's just like, it's interesting. I was like looking through the different items and going like, okay, like where are these things available? Like, how does this actually break down? Because in terms of like where you get stuff, because I was like trying to think like where do we actually get this stuff and like how do we do this? Because the knee-jerk reaction, which is probably not necessarily incorrect, is like
Sure.
Bastion plate should be on the trader. It should be in raid only. Then where do we put it? Okay, like we have to like think about what to do with that. But there's like trying to make it a bit more systematic, like going in order. You've got you've got basically the flea. Let's just run this down, right? I'm like struggling so much to structure this. You've got like the flea. You've got normal trader purchases in cash, traders on a barter, crafting, and in raid in some fashion, right? In raid is kind of its own category because there's like lots of considerations for that. But those are broadly like the 5 categories. So the flea market is actually unique these days because it's pretty much the only place where you can buy infinite amounts of whatever's on there. Like, yeah, there's flea bans, but if it's on the flea, as long as you've got the money, you can buy as much as you like. It's like the only place that really is the case now, which is kind of interesting. So it's like, what's the access? You've got these like different categories, and then it's like, okay, what's the access? Well, the flea market is infinite access. It's like, once you get to level 15, it's infinite access. It's level locked, and then after that, you can buy as much as you like as long as you have the money for it. But you take market pricing. That's like the downside. Then on the traders, you've got a whole bunch of items which are like fixed pricing. What are you drawing?
I want to try to visualize this. Put
Okay.
good gear.
Okay. Then you've got fixed pricing on the traders for some stuff, but you've got like a personal limit and a trader refresh cycle. So you can buy 2 Bastion helmets per Ragman reset. They're 66k. The price doesn't change. It doesn't go up or anything. You know it's going to be 66k, but you can only buy 2. Once you've purchased your 2, you can buy more early, but you have to go to the flea where you've got infinite access, but the price is variable. It's kind of like the 2 different mechanisms, and some things are on one and not on the other, right? Then you've got trader barters where that is no longer fixed. It's basically a market price because the flea price for the input items, it's basically the flea, but it's the flea market, but overlaid with personal limits and a trader refresh cycle. So it's kind of like a hybrid of the two. You've market pricing, but limited access like the cash purchases. And then for each one of those things, the flea market has got its own. There's like this. You can kind of like split it into two sections, right? You've got temporary limits, which are the ones that we just talked about, which is you have access to it, but 2 per reset. Every reset it comes back. Like that's how many you can buy per reset. And then you've got like permanent limits, which is trader like level. The flea market has one, right? Level 15. So the flea market has 1 permanent limit, which is the level 15. After that, you can buy from it from evermore. The traders are kind of the same. They've got like a trader level limit. After that, it's a binary thing. It's you either have it or you don't. Once you have it forever. And then the traders also have the quest locking as well. So you need the trader rep, and you also need the quest to be completed for some other items. Those are like the most locked down on the traders, and that extends all the way out to things like Lightkeeper. So what makes this like even more complicated? Just thinking about those 3 to start with, because those are the ones I've spent the most time on brainstorming so far. What makes this complicated is that those ones, like, we have like other concepts, right? So we have other concepts like removing finding raid from the flea, which has like made this different. It's made this quite different how it used to be in subtle ways. So let's move on from these 2 because the Bastion is like relatively straightforward. Both the Bastion itself is on the traders for cash and the flea. The Bastion plate is on the traders for barter and also on the flea. So that kind of covers all 3 of these things. If you can buy a Bastion plate using the barter, once you've run out on the barter, you can then pay even more money for it on the flea market. There's obviously a durability thing as well, but if we just talk about ones that are brand new, it's usually 50% extra to buy one that's new off the flea. But that price is actually probably lower than it should be because you can buy one from the trader. If you don't want to use it, you can buy one from the trader using the barter and then sell it to somebody else for cash because of the trader flipping thing, right? Which is like, as I said, it makes it slightly more complicated because there's people out there who previously the barter, on the flea market it would be like 600k, right? But like now it's only 300k because people are arbing the gap between the barter price and the cash purchase on the flea market for people who've already used their barter, who are willing to pay the spread. It's like that's what makes this like extra complex. So then like let's just like something like the Death Shadow is like maybe a little bit different, but it's kind of the same. It's like it's a quest locked purchase. So it's got a fixed price, but it's quest locked. But the quest is like really high level. It's like third quest on Lightkeeper. So not that many people have it. However, because the item is it's like very easy to repair, has practically no downsides, and can also be flipped on the flee. They're not actually that much. They're also not that. They're not actually that good either, which is like makes it a bit strange. But they can be flipped on the flee pretty easily. And one thing that I was like very intrigued about was just thinking about the whole system. Right now that these things can get put back up on the marketplace, you actually only need a few people to get to the Lightkeeper quest to buy them and start reselling them on the flea market to like dramatically inflate the supply within the player base. Because like, how does the Death Shadow leave the game? It goes down to 0 durability and somebody eventually just sells it to the trader. But like, it's made of aramid, so like that doesn't happen very quickly. But pretty much most people insure most things when they go into raid. If you die with it and they don't take it, you get it back. If you do die with it and they take it, they get it. So like, at what point does this leave the economy? Like, it doesn't.
Yes.
So,
sorry,
you end up with loads of them, right?
I just squeeze this in real quick because it's so exciting. Yeah. It reminds me of when I was looking at economy stuff, how it relates to Tarkov, and one of the things in this con economy, class that I like watched on YouTube was these goods that are like water, for example. We think of it as a infinite resource, but it's actually finite. It's just we have a very large supply of it, right? But in reality, it's finite, and there's aspects to this in the market where, something's finite versus something's like infinite, so to speak, and how that plays into the market. And in this case, like you're accurately talking about some of these items, their lifespan is very, like, for example, backpacks, they never go away. They don't get consumed. It's like they just exist and like keep existing until someone presses the delete key or it goes on fence or doesn't get looted, whereas like a armor or like a plate, as you're accurately describing, does eventually reach 0 durability, and it does not have any use whatsoever. Like if you're in raid and you have a 0 durability plate equipped, you're better off taking it and throwing it out because you'll save weight and you'll reduce penalties,
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it's weird. So the Death Shadow is sort of like that, but bags is an interesting one, especially like good bags, because people will always take them. And as you say, they just never get removed from the game. The only times they get removed is if like a scav picks them up and then they don't get returned in insurance. Maybe that's why they added that mechanic, partly to like have an exit for some of these, these items, because otherwise they just don't get removed. They just don't go from the game. Like they're not consumable in any way. They don't have durability. So it's just it's quite interesting, and that then means that the supply just goes up and up. You only need a few people to be able to purchase this thing. I do think there was also that event where all the scavs were wearing masks for a while. They had Death Shadows on, CQCMs.
Oh yeah, with like the broken guns and such.
Yeah, that weird one. Yeah. I don't remember what happened in that one. There was like big groups of scavs with like special scavs. You had to kill them. I actually can't remember which event that was.
Was that an arena one related to? Or am I thinking of something else? Anyways, doesn't matter. I'm tracking.
It doesn't really matter. But they had a ton of these face masks on. Like they probably never went away. You could sell them on the flea market. The masks went down. I think Death Shadows went to like 70k. Like in fairness, they do eventually die, right? They do go away eventually. But it takes a very long time.
It takes a long time, yes,
for these types to disappear and actually be useless. And people will always pick them up because they're valuable. And the price has gone back up now, but lots of people still have them in their thing. So I was wondering about like these items that just like everybody wears. It's like, well, where are they getting these Death Shadows from? And I was thinking like, well, where are the Death Shadows like going? Like, I don't have access to the Death Shadow. I bought it off the flea. But I was like, well, if everybody's buying it off the flea, then like, how is there ever supply for the flea? But it's like, well, also because if you kill me, now that you can flip it, then you can put it back up. Right? There's no exit. Like previously, if you killed me and I had one on, you would have it. But if you didn't want to use it, you'd either just sell its offense or keep it in your stash because it's valuable or whatever. Right? There was no way that you could resell it. There was this like there's a weird thing about how people are kind of more likely to use stuff if they can't sell it. Right? Your options
Right.
are, and we've talked about this like a lot, like actually quite a long time ago, about how if it's 300k on the flea, you kind of don't want to sell it, right? If you don't want to, or, sorry, you don't want to use it. If you're like poor or whatever, you're just like, I don't really want to. Like, I'd rather just sell this. I don't really want to run it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's banned on the flea, you go, well, I may as well use it because it's going to be 10k defense.
Yes.
And that's very sensible decision making, right? But then it frees people like, oh, maybe I do want to use it, but not now because it's really expensive. So that's when you get into this like hoarding gear fear mentality where people like keep this stuff and then never use it because it's 300k on the fleet, but they don't want to sell it because they're like, oh, but what if I do want to use it? You know, it's like it's kind of weird. But now that that it's like finding raiders gone for the flea market, then you can cycle and circulate these things out to somebody else. So there's a lot of supply on there. Like they never really go away on the flea once they get added into the game. So I'm just like, I find it's quite intriguing that in particular as just as a concept, you've got these like high level items that come off the trader, but they're on the flea market, and so they just keep getting circulated round and round and round and round and round.
Yeah,
which is weird.
Now that I think about it, it's probably fair to say that the raid and trader are related. Meaning that, in this like diagram here, I got like a float. It's kind of like a flow chart. I don't even know what it is, but we got good gear at the top. That could, I don't know if that's whatever. And then it sort of like diverges into 3 different sources. You get it from the flea, raid, and then trader sort of diverges. And then we got like trader barters and then, cash purchases, right? And with no FIR restrictions like we have now, there's interchangeability between flea and raid, right? Where you can just like go and raid, loot item, exit, sell item, doesn't matter. Player, like all that's gone out the window. Because there's only like, for limits, there's bans, right? We have bans on flea. And then for trader and raid, there's like technically a relationship because I don't know if that's accurate, but you loot an item and then you take it and you sell it to a trader or you turn it into a quest, which is not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about more economic stuff, but like you sell it to the trader, right? Or you could use it for a barter and vice versa. You buy items from the trader to bring into raid. It's like the thing you do. So when we're talking about like the sourcing where you get stuff, there's almost this like, I had this flowchart where it's like everything is flowing, everything flows through the raid, but it used to be, right, when we had found in raid bans, I guess there was a flow. It's the wrong color, but there was a flow to, like, technically you could buy. I should do it the opposite. It should be the opposite arrow. So there wasn't. I mean, let me think. Could you? Yeah, there was like a weird restriction. There was a flow from raid to flea,
of course,
but it was not a. It was a. What is it?
It's like a double loop thing. It's like the raid stuff can go to the flea.
Yes.
The flea stuff can go to the raid, but once it's been taken that way, it can't be put back. It's almost like a second layer, right? It's like flea into raid and then out again only goes to trader. It's like the second layer.
You're right.
If it originated already on the wings, it can then only go to the trader, whereas now it can still flow both ways. Like the circle is complete through the flea, whereas before, if that second
it can only do one rotation.
Broken, it can only do one rotation.
Whereas now, it can rotate.
It can rotate forever.
Forever, which has implications.
Depending on the item.
As you're describing, depending on the item. As long as it's not bans or...
Yeah, but we've gone from like one use to infinite use for many items.
Yeah,
like it's a huge change.
Yes,
for availability, just for overall like scarcity, balance, that kind of thing. It's a massive, massive difference, and it's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. Like I'm also interested in things like you see the Bastion play all the time, and I do wonder whether the fact that it is on the flea contributes towards this, because there's a lot of people that just buy it on the flea, or they do the barter and then they buy it on the flea after that. Whereas something like the Cult Termite, you don't always see people wear that. You do quite often, but not always. And I think maybe that's because people can't be bothered to fiddle with the armor for a start, but also because it's only barter. You get your 2, that's it, for 3 hours. So you can't go to the fleet. There's no backstop. For the Bastion plate, there's a backstop, right? So people, I feel like the Bastion 6 plate, it's arguably like better, right? What's the delta between a, I don't know, a Karund VM class 5 versus the Cult Termite class 6? Like, yeah, there's a gap there in performance, but is it that big? Like, I would argue yes, but is it as big as wearing a class 4 helmet versus wearing a Bastion class 6 on top of the class 4? Like, that gap is like kind of bigger in some ways, right? Like with the class 5, you're maybe, you're a 3 hit rather than a 5 hit, or a 2 hit versus a 5 hit, or a 6 hit, or whatever. Like a 5 hit versus an 8 hit, 9 hit versus like better ammo. Whereas with the Bastion helmet, it's just like you died or you didn't. It's very binary. And having class 6 in your head, like that difference is actually bigger. So in some ways, it's like it's more meaningful. And then the fact that it's also on the fleet means more people are going to pick that up. It's like, well, you'll survive most of the time with armor on. Like sometimes you die, but like, you'd probably died anyway. Whereas with the helmet thing, it's like if you can get the classics helmet, like damn, you like really need that. So you see Bastions all the time. And so with them being on the fleet, I wonder if they ban them off the fleet, whether you would see less of them. I know people would still use the barter, but I wonder whether you'd see less of them just because people wouldn't be going on and paying 300, 400k for them, because people don't even care to pay that now. Right? It's like people have got 200 mil in the end game, so they just don't even, they're not even fussed about paying that. So the fact that it's on the fleet in the first place is kind of problematic.
This is very intriguing because I've effectively had this conversation like very similarly with Arx Messer. You may remember many moons ago we did a podcast. I invited them on because we were talking so many Tarkov things, but main thing was secure container stuff. But tying it back, I think it's interesting because one of the things that he talked about was, where do you get this? Because I guess you could replace good gear with like money in general, but like when you think about the source of this stuff, like money, for example, you get it from doing raids and surviving, right? You get it from doing quest, you get it from scavving, you get it from hideout, you get it from selling items on the flea, get it from selling items to the trader, right? And like, what does money get you? Well, you can buy things off the flea, you can buy, with exceptions, you can buy things off the traders with exceptions, right? All this stuff. But what's interesting is with scav, because you only pay an opportunity cost in the form of EXP on your PMC and or completing certain quests as well. Like there's definitely a cost there, right? But I like, and you have to survive, so there is like a skill check requirement, which is interesting in of itself. But I find that because of the changes they've made over the years, like scav karma, for example, people are incentivized to be good scavs. Like it's you and I, there's a weird like dynamic to it, but in general, people want to level that up because it's effectively a linear progression tree, and there's an inverse linearity to it where if you do bad behaviors, you get punished and you take on more and more punishments. Longer cooldowns on scavs, worse gear. Eventually it gets so bad where scavs are just AI scavs just automatically shoot at you, right? Whereas if you climb up the ladder, you get a lower cooldown, etc., better gear, etc., and that effectively like increases your outputs, right? Like if I have a bigger backpack or like a better gear, I'm more likely to survive as a scav. And because the cooldown gets lower, it means you can scav more often. And so that is like a flow of income that's like some like infinite in a sense, but it is a skill check. So that's one caveat. But because now we got this interchangeability with the flea, right? And the cycle can infinitely loop, I feel like there's a, and I don't, again, I'm not saying there's a right or wrong here. It's just like whatever's happening is like these things are like feeding into each other, and like the monster that is the Tarkov economy, the beast is just like growing and growing, where like we get into these states where like everything is meaningless because there's just an abundance of it. Because now we have money is largely abundant. Like it's largely irrelevant once you reach a certain progression
Yeah.
point, right? Because hideout can keep that afloat, scab can keep that afloat, whatever. It's like you just get a lot of it. And that scales with, skill, of course. And then you got the gear itself, and as we said, things break down, some things don't. But because now we have this interchangeability, the supply is just like shot up a bunch. And so like the money and supply are like both scaling. It's like the wipes were like always necessarily like just the way the system's set up. I guess like maybe you can do it without wipes. I don't know. But I just feel like things are scaling maybe probably a bit faster, but also exponentially. It's like it's feeding into each other now. Like it's the raids are feeding into each other. The circle's constantly getting completed, but also like the scav, all the income is like now can be properly dumped into it.
Yeah. I mean, there's two sides to it, right? It's supply and demand, as
Of
it is with any
course.
marketplace. And what's interesting to me is that you can kind of see, even for something like the spear, the only thing that changed with the spear was finding raid got removed from the fleet. That's it. That's the only thing that changed. The spear itself didn't
Oh, that's
change.
true. Because it
In
was,
fairness, there's some they did get added more to Kibba and a few other places, so maybe there's a bit more actual
yeah,
supply there too. But what we've got was, we've got items we've got money becoming less valuable because there's more money in the system because of scav runs and all the other aforementioned stuff, Bitcoin farm, whatever. But then you've also got like more people chasing after the high end items. Now, the spear is still, you imagine now the demand for the spear is probably as high as it's ever been. Just looking at demand by itself.
mm-hmm, of
And the economy is inflated much more than when we're talking like 2 months ago.
course.
Despite that, a brand new spear costs you under 400k. In fact, you could buy a 100% one now for 320. They're basically between 300 and 400k right now, which is nearly half what it was when Final Raid was removed, like before then.
Really?
500 or 600,000 previously. And so what's interesting is that even though we can pretty much assume that demand is probably higher, like as a percentage of the playing player base,
Right.
Spear's price hasn't actually inflated that much. And that's because of the supply loop, in my opinion. Right? Because you can repair the spear multiple times. Like the
Yes.
spear gets used like 20 times more than it was before.
Right.
Or maybe 10 times, maybe 10 times more. I don't know. Like how much durability do you realistically go through in a raid? Because they're getting resold by people. And that's like, even though the demand is probably higher than it was 2 months ago, the price is still only 60% of what it used to be. But it's just interesting because the supply is so much bigger than it was because of this like circulation. It's like funny, like both things have gone up. The inflation of items has gone up, but the supply has like gone up like even more than all of that. It's like quite interesting,
Yeah, I mean, demand's, that's
and
interesting.
that's even with it being kind of a consumable too.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel
Like it
like
has durability, right?
the weapon. The only thing with like weapons, if you're like me, I just don't want jam, so I avoid like the 93%. So like for me, effectively, 93. If it's under 93%, it's like as good as dead. So I just,
Mm.
if I can, I buy the receiver and just swap the parts over, right? Um, but if you don't, subscribe to that, there's a lot of lifespan. Like I don't think I've ever seen a gun that's like 70. Like it's extremely rare to see a gun that's like 70% durability. Like I'll
Yeah,
occasionally see someone using what's deemed as a scab weapon because it's like in that 50% range. It's like, this guy got a scab weapon. Put there's some mods on it, whatever. Like even the scav weapon, like there's a video on Jesse's channel. I can't remember when, or maybe they were testing weapon jams. I don't remember, but he got like an AK to like 17%, or like, the lowest percentage, possible. And just to like show the jam rate and stuff, and it was like a very binary range. Like once it reaches like this critical mass, and it's like jamming constantly, as I recall. But I don't think I've ever seen anyone in this, like, if I have, it was like such a one-off that I can't even recall. But anyone ever with like such a low, like they were so down bad, they had to bring out the 10% 209, or 219, the AK, whatever. It's just like they were that down bad. Couldn't even afford a dust cover on it. It was just so beat up, and they had to sell the stock just to buy their slice of cheese to heal themselves from the raid. They were like, I just never seen that. I'm not saying that that has to be the norm. No, it's just crazy how, even though we have these technically consumable items, like a Salewa, it's a consumable. It has 40 HP points to it, and then it evaporates. Technically, a assault rifle has 100 durability points or whatever. Once it reaches 0, it doesn't work anymore. Like you can't even beat him over the head with it. It's like useless. So I don't know, the way this is going. I mean, it's like how it used to be, which, I just don't know, Giga. I think it, like, it's interesting, but like, I don't, maybe if they like scale up the like durability, consumability rate to kind of like balance it out. But I just don't know. I don't even know what the goal is, or what they're trying to do,
What I'm struggling with right now is that we had this conversation about banned weapons a couple of weeks ago, and I quite like keeping stuff open if we can, because it makes the game a bit more flexible. It's like, okay, the spear's on the flea, but it means that you have to get to the Peacekeeper level 4. That does kind of mean that people can run it whenever if they have the money for it, which is like, that's kind of a thing. That's fine. But the part that I'm struggling with is if you go, oh, it's too much, with like say the Bastion one is too much. We need to get rid of it from the flea. If you just get rid of it from the flea market and you keep it on the traders, kind of the problem that you end up with is that you then only have, like, you don't give people the option to pay a lot for it if they want to. Like people who are like coming up through the ranks, like you have to get to the maximum level of progression to buy it. Just, I don't know whether that's really necessarily that great.
When that's the only way you can get it, is you have to
it's
funnel
like the
through.
trader.
Yeah,
and it's on a barter on the trader or something. Like I just find that kind of annoying. Like it's quite fun to have like some of these items available, at least, even though it's kind of expensive for like lower PMC level players. It's like you don't want every single thing locked away, but then you also don't want to give a ton of access to people who are going to use it every raid either. It's like it's very hard to get that balance right between it being interesting. And I think that's like partly where the putting this stuff in raid thing really comes to the forefront, because it's like almost the leveler, right? Everyone's in the raid together. Depending on where you put this stuff, you could start putting the Bastion class 6 plates again in Kibba. But it's also, that's like a tricky one too, because you're then manually defining these hotspots that people are going to fight over, and it's like, is Kibba the only place that is that going to get kind of boring if you have to just keep going back again and again? Like how interesting is that actually going to be? Like, yeah, it's player driven. Like you've decided that you want to go and get the class 6 plates or the Bastion plate or whatever it might be. There almost needs to be like, you don't. It's such a weird balance. It's like, let's say that it's only in Kibba. All these things are only in Kibba. The spear, the class 6 plates, the Bastion helmet, like the Death Shadow, whatever. They're all in Kibba. Well, Kibba's going to just be like an absolute war zone now. Every single raid, people are very incentivized to go there, and then it's a combination of skill and gear as to what. It's a combination of skill and gear then as to who wins. So you almost like lock out people who. It's almost too much. Yeah, you almost like lock out people who are like not as skilled or not as geared or whatever, because they're just going to lose to the guy of the meta gear because they already had the meta gear because they won the Kibba fight. I'm not sure. I like it's so tricky. It's such a tricky
No,
thing. Whereas if you distribute the stuff everywhere, like we saw with the stashes, then you've got really no incentive to run any raids because you don't feel like you've got any player um what's the word, like agency to actually affect the outcome. You're just like hitting random stashes in
which
the hope that
feels
you
really
find
bad.
something, which feels really bad. And it's the same mechanic as with the bosses. I've had a lot of conversations on my stream about like finding bosses, right? The thing that
Mm,
just killed you about trying to find the goons. There's nothing clever about it. There's nothing you can do.
right. You're
There's no
just
player
dice
agency.
rolling
You're
constantly.
just dice rolling, and it sucks, right? It feels like you have no control over what's actually happening. You're just gambling each time, and
Even
it's
if
like,
you
and that
do get
gets
the
really
right
dull.
dice roll, did you get the, that they spawn? Did you get the right
Mm.
dice roll in your own spawn? If I spawned
Yeah,
on the opposite
like
side of the
two.
map,
Exactly. It's like,
yeah.
it's 30%, and then another like,
It's
30%, 20% that
because
you're
some
even close.
other guy is also trying for the dice roll and he
Hmm.
got the good spawn. Like that's happened.
Yeah.
Like I arrived too late to the scene, and then it sucks because it's like, well, maybe I should have just like blindly rushed in, which is like, that's a dice roll in of itself. Do I just like forego any strategical strategy and methodology and like approaching the situation, or do I just run in,
Hmm.
to straight to the bosses and hope that I'm the first one there to kill him? It sucks.
Yeah. It does. It does. Like we talked a lot about that on stream, but I don't necessarily want to talk about the bosses too much because like that's a
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
nother
yeah,
like side conversation. But it's like
for
it's the
sure.
same mechanic
Yeah,
around this. Like
same principle. Yep.
if you put the loot everywhere with a random chance, a low chance, the player agency is reduced to zero. If you concentrate it into one spot,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
the player agency is so high that people who like are even just average at the game also just can't participate and can never get this stuff. It's like, oh, it's not on the flea. There's
I
no
see what you're
Barty. It's
saying.
only in raid, and it's only here. It's like people trying to fight over, red keycard room or whatever, or like black room on labs. It's like if you're like a lower level, slightly lower grade player, like you're
Yeah,
just locked out of that content forever because you just can never compete there. But you don't necessarily want to skill check people in a like binary way. Like, sure, there can be something to it, but
and
so like you need a distribution of this kind of stuff.
yeah, that's actually really interesting and a very good point because I never actually thought about that. Like the idea that like labs, red room for example, if there was a mandatory quest at like level 10 that you had to get into the labs like red room, and let's say labs red room had like guaranteed Bitcoin spawns in it, it disproportionately like negatively affects people who haven't done the quest because it's really hard to get into labs. You gotta like
Mm.
pay to go into labs, right? Then you gotta like have the red key card, right? Then you gotta like hope that someone, you have to like strategize around it. You're at all meanwhile, the guy that's like farming labs, he's getting guaranteed Bitcoins, is, got God tier armor and such. And it's like that, and that's the only way this player has to get to that point to where they can be the Giga Chad. They have to go through this funnel, right? And
Mm.
this reminds me of LEDX's. How LEDX's, the advice in the day was to go shoreline and to go to this room 228, 226. I don't even know, whatever. I know it's on the second floor. And I know the rooms, I just don't know the numbers. And you go in, and that's how you get LEDX's, right? And it felt bad as a player because you had to learn. This is why people hate Lighthouse. You had to learn the map. You had to learn this area. You just had to get good. Like, I hate to say it, but the phrase was true. You just had to get good. That, or you shove it up your butt and disconnect it. But that's a whole different story. So, anyways, um,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
they added the hideout craft for that, and people rejoiced because it's like, here's an alternative, right? And the criticism there was like, well, the way this is done is, it's just now it goes back to this flow chart. Now I just loot anything and I get ruble, and then I buy items off the flea and I craft the quest item and I turn it into the trader, which
Yeah.
is like a less engaging experience because you just do the generic thing in this game, which is make money. And there's so many ways to make money, which is nice, but I don't. it's a balance, I guess,
Yeah. Like the best way that I'm thinking about it now is like, okay, how do you balance it so it's like in the middle? It's like, you could have like Kibba be like the high percentage chance spawn for these things. Like there aren't really any trash spawns. Like there's some, but it's low. And then you could have something like, the bosses, which is like medium chance, but you got to fight them. Raiders, whatever, like they have a chance to have one in their bag or whatever. You can like get them sometimes that way. And you got these like different grades maybe of rooms. So then you can then kind of choose. It's like, do I want to just duke it out in the hotspot? It gives me the best chance, but it's the highest, like, I don't know, risk, I suppose. Then it's proper risk reward. It's like, okay, well, I can fight against the AI. Like I can learn to
Hmm.
fight the AI. And if I do that, then I might be rewarded with one of these items. Or yeah, maybe you have like, a locked room as well, or like some of the spawns in some of the locked rooms that are like more frequent have a lowest chance of spawning something good. So like you can hit them multiple times and eventually you'll find one of these things. So it's like then you feel like, okay, I've actually got like some agency here. I can kind of choose my route. I'm going to go to the place that's maybe lower PvP, and it's going to
Right.
take longer, but like I might actually find one of these things. And if I do, I'm going to be able to leave with it. Or I fight the boss. I fight some kind of AI, or I just go to the PvP hotspot for the high chance. And then it's like, okay, there's enough places where these things can spawn at least that you're not always just like, well, there's going to be some element of chance to it. It's like what you get, and I think like having
Of
it being
course.
variable is kind of cool. Like where the chance rate is quite nice is that you don't always get a Bastion plate every time. Like you definitely wouldn't want
Hmm.
to get
Hmm.
one that often, right? Because you want it to be sort of scarce. But when you go in there, you're going to get something useful.
Yeah.
It'll be a classic plate, or it'll be a spear, or whatever. It might not necessarily
Yeah.
be the item you're looking for, but you're like, this is valuable
This.
and I will use it. It's an interesting thing.
Hmm.
Because then if it's in raid, then I feel more confident, like, banning the spear off the flea or whatever. If we do want to do
Right.
that, I'm still not set on that, but if we do want to do that to stop people running it all the time, because it's just the easiest, like, brain dead, like, meta thing to do, because everything else is locked. It's like the most viable minimum
Hmm.
restriction item out there, which is the way that meta forms, right? It's like,
Yeah.
what's
I
the thing
mean,
with the lowest restriction is the most effective. And
yeah.
that's the idea here. It's like, okay, the black MDR and the spear I can buy off the trader or on the flea, and I can buy the ammo straight off the trader too. So those things, and they're good. So those things are used. Um, it's just, we need to shift some of these things, like Bastion Plate, definitely, like probably Cult Termite as well. Those things need to go into raid, and then anything that then starts to go on the traders, it's like the 90% stuff, 80% stuff that could be on the traders as a barter. That's like, okay, you can run. I mean, if you don't want to make too radical a change, you can run
Hmm.
class 6, but it's ceramic. You can barter that for
Yeah.
an egg.
Yeah.
It's like, how high will that get? People like, you can't really repair it. Like, then there's not so many problems of like, well,
Right.
they're banned on the flea anyway, so there's no issues with circulation for those types
Yes.
of items because they're not even available on the flea market. So that's fine to stop people from short circuiting the progressions. That's okay. But then you're like, I know it's not the best thing. It's not really that good. Like, if I come from someone that gets with the termite on, they might kill me in a straight up fight. So I need to go
Hmm.
and find
Hmm.
one so I can wear it and like, you know, be better. Like there's always ways to gear up. I say it's very interesting how this stuff works and how it like flows through. Especially as I said with like insurance and the way that the finding raid system works now and the open flea, these items like can stay a long time in the game if they're not banned off the flea. Because banning them off the flea is one way; it just like cuts off that whole recirculation. It's like making them finding raid again.
Yes.
Being banned on the flea
Basically.
market like
Yeah.
re-adds that element to that one item.
Yeah.
So you can buy it once and then it can't go back. Actually, well, you can't
Yeah.
even buy it because it wouldn't be on the flea at all. It cuts off
you
that whole
you
section.
could buy it. Well, like, okay, so this is, let's do this. So I got, using this flow chart, we'll try our best to describe it auditorily. So at the top, we're trying to figure out this orange brick is going to represent the plate. Where do we get the plate? So we get it from raid, flea, and trader, right? Hypothetically, except it's banned on the flea, so we can't actually get it from the trader. I mean, from the flea.
Honestly, yeah.
Let's see, is this on the right layer? Yeah. And you can't, because it's banned on the flea, you can't loot it in raid and sell on the flea, and you can't acquire it from flea. So you can't like bring it into raid from the flea, right? You can only get it from the trader, and because of that, you can get it, like, I guess indirectly you can get it from the flea. This is
Yeah.
where it gets a little muddy because you do use the flea to make money. Which, if money is like the final link in the or like the link in the chain that connects the two that gets you the thing, the cult termite, then like yeah, you kind of use the flea, but not directly. But doesn't matter. Largely not important, I think. But I can't. Yeah, and then I can take that item into raid, and then someone could kill me, and then take it out of raid, and then sell it to the trader. Which effectively, this is the other interesting part. Selling things on the flea, obviously puts it back in the economy and the market. Like I say, obviously, but when you sell it to the trader, it's basically as if you deleted it, right? Which may not be like indirectly, like I guess you get money, so like it's converted technically, but the item is gone, in a sense. So like if that in the case of this, selling the item to the trader, I can't use that money to get that same item again because I can't get it from the flea. Like, yes, I can buy I mean, this is where like barters are kind of a weird area because then it's like, oh, I can just take that money, buy the barter items off the flea, and then get the item that way. So like, I guess there's that, but there's something there, and it's interesting. You talk about this, like we have to talk about this more. I took a note down for next week, but it's interesting because I'm seeing things, and it's like and I see what you're saying, and it's so interesting how this all plays in each other. And I just like, I don't know, I just think it's fascinating because the economy side of Tarkov is like, so there's so much potential in like so many ways, and it's very interesting how everything interconnects, and then you're dealing with like human psychology, like you talked about brain dead meta, and it's like, so like it's like the human condition, right? It's like we're so prone to, I don't want to see doing things like, it's like the choice between sliding through a bunch of nails on the floor or walking on carpet. I'm picking carpet every time. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not gonna do the painful thing, even though there may be some value in the painful thing, like I learned a valuable lesson. Clean up the nails before you slide on the carpet.
Kind of two things that I want to say, and we should probably just wrap up. I don't actually really know what, like, I'm
Right.
still deciding what to do, right? Like this thing is very much still like, it's not my decision anyway, but I'm just kind of like trying to put ideas out there and like restructure things so it's obvious like what's actually going on. Because I think it's very confusing, right? And it's easy to just look at the situation and throw out ideas like, oh, get rid of the barter for the Bastion. It's like, okay, but then where are you going to put it? Like, do you want it gone? Do you only want high level people to access it? It depends on what you want, right? Do you only want high level people to access it? If you do, it's like, so, and this is the one, I've written this down like in my like little like ideas thing. Is I've got like random ideas. I'm trying to like fit them into this sort of thought process. And I've written like two statements. It's okay to have powerful things, but they need to be balanced with access. At the same time, you don't want only high-end players to be able to get these items. Those are the kind of the two sort of premises I'm working off right now, which is like, if you balance the access so it's level 60 plus gets access to this item forever in cash, like, okay, sure, but like that kind of sucks, right? It means you lock out like 99% of your player base from ever using this thing. Like M61 is a bit like that. It's kind of why I was looking at this like N993, you get 5 rounds every 4 hours thing. Cause it's like, well, yeah, you can be a Chad and go up and get the good thing, or you can get like the really restricted thing if you're lower, but you still get access. You just have to be more thoughtful about it. Like, kind of interesting. And then the second part that I was just going to mention was that chat actually was having like a really interesting conversation about why people wear this stuff in the first place, which I thought was quite cool. Actually, it's like a really interesting. It's like an interesting thing there.
Yeah,
about like why,
question.
And more specifically about like the Death Shadow. Like it's class 2. It doesn't work most of the time.
Yeah.
Like, what does it block? It doesn't even block PST out of a Glock, right? Like, you will die anyway wearing a Death Shadow. So why do people wear it? And it's like, people think it's good. There's a perception of it being good. You see other people wearing it, so you wear it. It's got armor, so you think, well, why not? Like with the shotguns or whatever. So there's that, there's that argument to it, which is fine. And then people were talking about like, was it worth wearing it? If it saved you from buckshot in one raid out of 200, Was it worth you losing 199 death shadows to survive that buckshot that one time? Right, which is a very, very, very interesting, like, I don't know, statement. Because no, economically, it wasn't worth wearing the death shadows for that one time where it did save you. However, it depends on what your priorities are. So if your goal is to maximize rubles and have as most rubles as you can at the end of the wipe, then you should stop wearing the death shadow.
Absolutely.
But for most people, that's not the case. Most people get to a certain amount of rubles and then they stop prioritizing rubles. And so if you can increase your survival rate by 1 raid out of 200 by spending 200k, even if it's uneconomic, because your money is still going up anyway, albeit very slightly slower if you do make this decision, people start making that choice instead. I would rather have 51.5% survival rate rather than 51%, because 1 in 200 raids, I get shot in the face by a scav when I'm not paying attention, and it saves me. I'd rather pay that because the excess money over and above 20 million doesn't really do anything for me. I can't spend it on anything to make my character better. I can't pay for any better gear. And the thing about the Death Shadow is that there are no downsides to it at all. There are literally no downsides. It replaces the Balaclava slot, so there's nothing that you can do there. It's the same thing with like the CQCM is a bit more complicated because you can't wear an actual helmet with it, but you get the ears. But why is the reason that we never, ever, ever see the fast face shield anymore? Well, because there is downsides to it. It only fits to certain helmets. It's got a grubby look to it, and it's only class 3. So you never see them. And it's this like very small difference between there are no downsides at all, but it's expensive. People pick that. There is some annoying visual downsides, but it's actually technically slightly better. Nobody uses it ever. Which is like quite an interesting thing in terms of like player choice, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and it shows that people aren't prioritizing money towards the end game. They're prioritizing this like tiny survival rate.
Sorry, it's also more restrictive, right? You can't sell it on the flea, right?
Correct. The fast MT face shield is banned on the flea, as is the exfil, and you never ever see them ever. But you can sell the Death Shadow on the flea and the CQCM mask. Those face shields should come back. Honestly, they should be unbanned, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh man, this is so. And the other interesting part is the psychological aspect. If you're prioritizing rubles, it feels okay, like acceptable to die because I only lost a Keter and a P.E.K.K.A. Like it's no big deal. Like it's whatever, Whereas like on the opposite side, I hate dying so much. I'm willing to pay 200k every time, every raid for this level 2 face because which is like, I feel like a category I've been a lot more into in my later time in Tarkov. It's like I just don't want to gear up again, so I'm just gonna pay the price. And it's also like because you're like you're prioritizing survival so much that you're dumping all this extra money into it. You kind of need a higher operating cost. Like you need to be able to take days where you lost like 10 mil, like and it's fine, like that would be pretty extreme, but maybe, and sometimes like I'll do this too. It's like, I'll have a few bad losses. Like guys, I'm only going to go on with like a P90 and a TV 110 rig. And like, that's it. I just like, I can't take another L. like, I'm broke. Like I have tons of money, but the fact that I've lost like 5 mil in the span of like 2 hours, like I just can't, guys. It's fine. I got like hundreds of millions, but I just no. The number hurts, ego hurts. It just and it's all psychological. And it's interesting, but
it is. There's another like a little extra bit, like it kind of ties in with the survival rate thing. It's sort of the same thing, but it just brings it like to the fore. Like Cell Tank was saying in the chat, like economically it's not worth buying this stuff sometimes. But what if that raid is the one with real consequence to death?
Yes, this was found in raid. Quest items come in too. That's another thing. Is like, can you imagine if I died to a scav buckshot from like 100 meters away?
You didn't buy the Death Shadow?
Oh, I would just be so devastated. Like,
and it's like, was that worth 200k for 200 raids? Like, it probably was. I had paid 20 mil to finish this quest straight up, right? Like, so there's this weird value there. It's just like it's so strange, especially late wipe. You almost pay any amount really to like increase, so long as it's not going to make you bankrupt, right? And this is the thing. I think, well, once you're not going to go bust, then it's kind of okay to pay whatever. Like as long as your money is still increasing or even just flatlining, once you get to a certain amount, you're like, I'll make these choices because it doesn't really matter. Like passively, that is. You'll probably make the raids too. But yeah, as long as you're not like losing money overall, then it doesn't really matter whether it's like economic because you kind of get like free money from other sources, hideout, Bitcoin farm, whatever, as well as just your in raid. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. There's like another comment that somebody had made separately about, I think it was on one of my streams, about like why it's kind of annoying that everyone wears Death Shadow because just it makes some things, just kind of breaks the balance in the game because there's no downside. Like the face shields, you have to decide to take one and then be protected from buckshot, whatever. Whereas like now you can just have it all the time. So if someone's got a pistol, they're not a threat really. The CQCM more so this was about, less so the Death Shadow because like you'll still die to a.
But even like at range, right? Like if once you start getting out to like 50 meters, like I mean, I wouldn't want to be. That's not an ideal situation for a pistol, but I'm a pistol runner. You know, it's like this is what I chosen to do to myself. You know, sometimes I'm just in those situations, and so yeah, it just kind of sucks that it exists. You know, the fact that this zero downside class, like I mean, we talked about this before, but I just don't like them adding. Like I don't know if I've like fully registered the zero downside aspect, but like just the fact that I guess it's kind of like the condors. The condors are like zero downside as well, and so this is like the condors equivalent, but in the face mask. And it's like, guys, I really don't. I mainly have an issue with the ricochet chance, but I don't know how important that is compared to
I'm not sure
the zero downside aspect.
And you can wear them both. You can wear the condors and the Death Shadow. By the way,
which is like ridiculous. I mean, we talked about this the other week, so I won't go into it. But hold me back, Giga. Hold me back.
So no, I don't know. It's interesting. Like it's like a balance between these things, and this is what makes it hard. There's no like one fix for all of this stuff, but it's not even necessarily that broken, right? Like people running around with all the same gear on, like okay, you know, people playing the game, whatever. Like this, it's not necessarily a problem per se. It's just like low gear diversity is a bit boring. If you kind of feel if you want to compete well, you feel kind of compelled to run the same couple of guns and the same ammo with the same armor. Armor's a little bit better now because they're all sort of the same. You know, you feel like you wear the Thor or the CPC or whatever. You put this class 6 plate in it, it's okay. So the diversity of plates is super low, but the actual armors that you can wear is actually quite high. So that actually works relatively well. That's not too bad. So it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but yeah, I don't know. And it goes hand in hand again with all of this stuff of like, how fair do you want the game to be? Like, I know the game is skewed by default. That's the whole point of the game. So it's like, well, how much do you want to flatten that curve versus how steep do you want to make it, right? It's like, that's really subjective.
Yeah, I was just thinking, this will have to be the last thing. Is like you've hit a content gold mine, Giga. I'm so like I love talking about this stuff, but I was just thinking, in the case of like you were describing, where you go to like Heba and it has like a high chance in proportion to the rest of the map to spawn good stuff, you know, and it's like a pool of good stuff. It's not like just a guarantee one particular item.
Yeah.
Like the case I was thinking of is like, just for example reasons, class 4 armors, because there's like a wide range of them and they're like kind of diverse in what they do, like specifically the rigs. So like imagine, you know, you go in and, for the sake of the example, you're guaranteed to find, or there's a really, really high chance to find a class 4 rig, right? And class 4 rigs are moderately scarce, let's say. But you find like one that's the Banshee, let's say. And in this hypothetical situation, you know, any class 4 is just like really great to have, right? Any armored rig that's just like highly sought after because it's deemed good, you know, it's like meta. But it's a Banshee, which comes with these various things, like it's a weird configuration, right? Like it's good, but it's a weird configuration. But because it's like versus like an Anna arm, what's the one that's got 2 2x4s? It's green. Is it Anna?
That's the Anna M1.
Yeah, Anna M1 versus that, you know, one player gets the Banshee and he's like, oh, this would be good for this RPK build that I have with 45 round extended mags, because I can utilize the 3x1s. Whereas the Anna one's like, oh, this would be good for my meme RPK build with the to
For the
drum
drum,
mag.
yeah.
Yeah, which, if they could apply a similar aspect to like other areas like weapons too, that would be interesting. Like you just kind of have like this pool of, it's like a P90 that's like, I don't know. It's hard to do, but like I feel like there might be something there where it's like
Mm.
you're finding good stuff and it's diverse, and that it's like, and the incentive there is to like use it. Maybe you could sell it and it'd be fine. I don't know, but it's one of those things where you're not just finding a spear every, like, oh, I found the guarantee item again. It, instead we're like mixing it up where it's like, oh, I found this time. How can I utilize this to my advantage? And maybe that
Yeah.
just looks like selling it. I don't know, but
And that makes it kind of fun. It's like there's something else I was thinking about, this like weapons crates thing. I actually think Nikita's making a mistake putting in durability loss on like weapon crate things. Well, I think maybe we talked about this previously a little bit, because he basically Nikita basically said that weapons in boxes were not going to be at 100% durability. So like,
oh, I remember him
just
talking about this. Yes.
just thinking broadly about like all the weapons in the game. Well, where's the 100% weapons going to come from? Only the traders. Like, oh god, that's like
Yeah.
so boring. Right? That's the easy access place. Like, it should be the other way around, in my opinion. I don't really care about the weapons in boxes so much, because then it's like, it's just stuff that's being sold on the flea. But if it was up to me, trader weapons maybe start at like 95% durability, or even if you weren't going to do that, put this is almost more interesting. So I think the boss weapons are the biggest like missed opportunity right now. They start at some horrible
Yeah.
durability. They're really crappy dura, right? At least like the boss themselves, their gun should be 100% or like 110% durability, right? Hear me out, right? They should be like extra pristine, and they should come with enhancements that are not available to be applied by the player in repair. It should come with like faster fire rate,
I re-
like enhanced bullet velocity, lower recoil,
yes.
stuff like that from the bosses specifically. So these is like special guns.
Yes.
Again, the durability will go away eventually, and then it'll be, you repair it once, and then the enhancements are lost. But like, it feels good to get the stuff from the bosses. You're like, okay, I actually want to take their gear. Like, if you've got the special M4 from whoever, or the special AK-101, which is, faster fire rate or whatever, like they've got these like better things, because they've been looked after by the bosses. It's like the legendary gun of this particular this
Yeah.
boss.
You could
And you
literally
could have,
take the blue, background color and change it to like green or I don't know what's the color of the palette they aren't using.
or even just keep it
Purple.
as the enhancement one, like the gold one
Sure.
is
Sure.
fine.
Yeah.
But then have these like special enhancements that are like actually meaningful, because I feel like the enhancements thing is almost, again, another missed opportunity, where
Mhm.
they're so like
Obscure and
they're so
rare.
obscure and have such little impact
Yeah.
that they're not even in the death shadow range of being, oh, my survival rate is increasing by like, it's
That's
not even
true.
in that realm, right? It's like,
Yeah.
what is it for guns? Durability decrease and MOA? Like, come on. That's like the two most irrelevant features of pretty much all
Yeah.
weapons. And then the armor one is like a bit better, but it's like impossible to level that up. Like, I don't know. It'd be really cool if the bosses had like unique armor, like, and it doesn't need to be anything special, right? They've already got this system in place. The bosses just need a couple more like cool ones. It'd be really sick, I think. That'd be kind of neat. But yeah, I don't know. Just to like have the traders be the only place where you can get 100% guns is just like kind of annoying. Pretty boring, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, you could keep it at 100. That's fine. But I just don't really see what like changing the weapons ones up to a lower than 100 is really going to do. And you got to be thinking about this boss thing, which I think is like more interesting.
It's funny because I remember watching the podcast, one of Jesse and Veritas. I mean, this had to have been like 2 years ago. Plus, they were talking about this exact thing, and I was like, "Yes, why hasn't PSG?" Like, it's kind of crazy that it's been I don't know how long it's been, but it's just like, man, this seems like such a like. What are the downsides? Like I don't like, and I feel like the reaction, like the reason they did that, I can't say for sure because I don't know if when the durabilities that came in, bosses' weapons were always like that. But regardless, I feel like the reason they did that was because fear of people on like wipe day or like early in the wipe killing the bosses and like basically farming the bosses for good gear. because like RPK at start a wipe, that's pretty good. I mean, if you run it, let's say you run into goons and you kill them start a wipe, maybe very difficult, but I don't know. Like I don't know. I just don't know. Like I wish I could know a lot. Is it like a cheater? Like are they worried about cheaters killing farming bosses and like selling them so they made them like less valuable by making their weapons, lower durability so the player base wouldn't be as interested? Like I have so many questions.
Yeah, I think it was a gear farming thing but this was pre-finding raid, pre-restrictions. People would go to
Right.
labs and they would farm raiders for like class 5 armor and like things like that and then sell them on the flea. I feel like we've come so far from that it's not needed now because you can't sell that armor on the flea anyway because it's banned. All the ammunition that's actually good is banned. So what does it matter if you manage to kill the goons on day one and pick up G28 from Bird Eye? Good for you,
Yeah.
You get to use the G28 early, great. You can't buy the ammo, so good luck. You know what I mean? It's like it feels okay.
Yeah, and it's like it would be so cool to use a weapon early wipe like the MCX on Big Pipe that he has, because
Yeah.
it's like I can't get access to that. And here's an opportunity where I can get a kitted out MCX that I'm probably never gonna like build one for one ever because it uses like gun aesthetic parts, weapon parts, not like meta parts. And it's got it has ammo because I killed Bird Eye and it's got magazines. Like this, like I would be so pumped, but it turns out it's like nah, it's like crappy durability. I'm better off like selling it. Like at least when we're talking about prioritizing survival. Okay, this will have to be the last thing because we gotta move on. We're talking about those two concepts like prioritizing economics and survival, which probably encapsulates most of the Tarkov player base, right? Is in that situation when you come across that 80 durability MCX, if you're prioritizing survival, and like especially to the extreme, I feel like I would sell it to buy something that's not going to jam on me. Like that's just me anyways. That may not be true for everyone that prioritizes survival. Whereas if you're prioritize economy, maybe you'll use it, but you could just sell it and like strip the parts put on the flea market and turn that into like that's like 20 ketters. You know what I mean? It's like that's like 5 budget runs. I'm gonna sell that. And that's the other part too, is a lot of some of the progression in Tarkov, like hideout trader, everything. A lot of it is like money driven. It's like you have to put money into traders to level them up. Like I can't just go from level 1 level 2 without spending money unless you're Peacekeeper. Oh wait, is it Peacekeeper? No, Peacekeeper's loyalty level. But anyways, I can't just not spend money on them. I can't just make the jump 1 to 4 without spending some money. So like money is like intrinsically used as part of progressing. So like you're almost like incentivized then if it's like not ideal for survival. It's like I might as well just sell it to the trader, to get the level up the trader. Like yeah. Okay. We gotta move on because we got so much more.
I was gonna say more, but we'll leave it for
now. So we got some hot off the press, brand new. You're likely hearing this. If you're listening to this on Monday, well, I don't know how long this event's gonna last, but we got a new event. New in-game event has started in Escape from Tarkov. Players now have access to a new quest from Jaeger. The lab location does not require a Terra Group lab access keycard to enter. In-game event will be available until July 29th. So that gives you, what, Tuesday, 5 a.m. EDT, 10 a.m. BST? Is that right?
Yeah. Monday.
Okay. Oh, Monday. Okay.
So it will already have ended by the time this cast goes out, even though it's just been announced. Oh well.
Maybe I'll post
what the quest is.
I'll post it at 4 a.m. just so you get it in for an hour.
Get it in on Monday morning.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a new quest from Jaeger. There isn't one, as far as I can see, so that maybe they're having to patch it or something. So look out for that. We don't know what the quest is going to be yet.
Yeah,
Not
we'll
sure.
see.
But free labs.
I feel like we're getting pretty close to something here. Probably in the month of August, we'll get some more information. But for now, just the way things are ramping up with the events,
doesn't feel like a wipe event. You know what I mean? Like free labs and then a Jaeger quest. It depends on what the Jaeger quest is and how long it is, if there's a big long quest line or whatever. But it doesn't seem like one. It hasn't come with any lore or anything like that. It's like, what actually is it? Just a picture of one of the lab's keycard swipers with blood on it.
yeah.
It just looks like a screenshot. It's like with the house mount suit next to it.
Yeah, I wonder if the map changed. That'd be interesting. Oops, wrong button.
Not sure. So we'll see what that's about then. Shall see. Shall I quickly whiz through Big Pockets before then you can talk about
I was going to say, stuff? Should I quickly whiz through?
Okay, you do your stuff. You do some of your stuff now.
So I recently acquired a VR headset. I have it here, and I was setting it up yesterday. Friends of mine, this was like hand-me-down essentially.
What is it? Which headset is it?
Quest 2. So they just got a Quest 3, and then they gave that Quest 2 to one of my other friends, and then they were like, used it, and was like, wow, this is so awesome. I'm gonna go buy the Quest 3. And so they're like, hey, church, what's your address? We're gonna send this to you. I was like, oh, that's really nice. That's cool. So I got that. Trying to set it up yesterday. Ran into a little bit of a technical issue, so we're gonna finish that up tonight. And yeah, we're gonna play some games. Like, I'm excited. One that we got was Tactical Assault VR, which is very like tactical, as is in the name, you know. Of course, there's like Ghosts of Tabor, which is like effectively the Tarkov but in VR equivalent, which I've seen videos on before. Like, it's interesting, so maybe I'll play that and see what that's like. But I've not
played it either.
I've used VR before, but I haven't like actually like sought it out and like done it on my own. It's more like a, you know, party thing, you know. It's like, whatever. But I don't know, it's gonna be interesting to like experience that and see what that's like, and the ways you interact. Like, it's pretty, so far it's pretty cool. Like, there was a virtual keyboard that I could like fire the trigger at to use it, and then I noticed the UI is like rendering my hands in like virtual space because of the controllers that I'm holding in my hands, right? And I was like, oh, I wonder, because it's rendering my finger. Like, there's sensors that like can read my index finger, where it's like extended or like folded. I was like, oh, I wonder if I can like poke the keyboard with my hands in VR. And I did it, and it worked. I was like, oh, I can just type on the keyboard with my fingers. It's like, that's kind of like, it's kind of neat and weird. Like, I don't know. It's just neat. But yeah, I'll probably have more on that in the future. I mean, I'm curious to see what that's like. Part of the problem with VR for me is just like accessibility, and just like it's kind of a pain in the ass to like set up. Like, it seems like it's gotten better though. Like, this was very like, you know, I don't need like cameras or like sensors in the corners of my room and all this stuff. So we'll see how that goes.
That's quite good, yeah, because I've got a CV1 Oculus, so like the early days. Right? And I've got like 3 sensors, right? 2 at the front, 1 at the back, and like you need a bunch of space, and like it's just a real pain. So it's like, yeah, that access is like problematic. It's okay if you've got like a big room, but like, my room here is not actually very big really, because I've got my desk and all my kit in front of me, and then the shelf behind me. It's like, it's probably all right, but I don't have that much space. You kind of need like a big living room or something to really take advantage of it. And then your PC's probably not in there. That's kind of what makes it sort of awkward, right? Like, if it's on a console, that's sort of a bit of a different proposition. Whereas like your PC is usually in like an office type room, just because of the way that houses are normally laid out. So it just makes it a bit awkward. But yeah, I enjoyed my time in VR. I haven't played on it for a long time, but I used to play this game. The best one at the time, this is a long time ago, was Onward, and that was funny. And I used to play that, and I was a bit like not really like CS, a bit like Call of Duty, I guess, like Call of Duty Search and Destroy kind of mode. It was like, it was tactical, more tactical than COD, I guess, but it was an interesting game. But it was the first one where I was like, you actually had to do the stuff. So you're like using these guns that you've played around with in video games for years, and you're like, I don't know how these actually function, especially being a Brit and like not having really touched many guns, and we just have access to it here. Just like you use the P90, just like, how the hell do I get the mag out of this thing? It's like,
Yeah.
what? How do I get it out?
Yeah.
Like, I need to reload. You got all the mags on your chest, and there's like the mag in the gun, and you like have to find the release switch, and like, oh god, it comes out the top like this. Holy crap, that's weird. It's just like all of that stuff. It was quite funny. So it was definitely an experience. I'm sure it's a lot better now than it was then. I wonder how like visually it is now, because I found the FOV was like quite like it was pretty decent for the time, but the FOV was like quite limited, and the screen resolution was okay, but like I wonder how much that's come on now.
I'm not sure if the newest tech out. I mean, I'm really not up to date, but I did notice that I can't remember what I was doing, but I felt like I was doing a lot of head movements to kind of like see, go from like keyboard to screen. But I'm sure it all eventually it just like doesn't even bother you or occur to you or whatever. So we'll see. I'm intrigued to have this experience and see
Interesting.
what I come from it.
I literally just like typed it in. Apparently, it's like the Quest 2 has a maximum FOV of 89 degrees, whereas the CV1 Rift has an FOV of around 110.
Huh.
So it's kind of intriguing.
So I have less SOV?
Apparently so. I don't know whether this is
That's interesting.
true or not, but I wonder about the display stuff. So it's like what does it say here? I don't know what it actually says in terms of the size. Oh, I think it's here. Yeah, with this guy got involved with the CV1 back in 2017, and it's got 1080 by 1200 per eye. And then the Quest 2 is like 1832 by 1920 per eye. So it's like nearly twice the resolution. So nearly four times the pixels per eye. That's a big increase in quality. That's a game changer actually.
Yeah,
that's like what's that like going? It's like going from 720 to like 1440p. It's like the equivalent.
Yeah, I think you're right.
With gaming monitor, that'd be kind of the equivalent. So even though the Rift's got like quite a good FOV, it's like the screen quality is like a lot worse. Apparently, according to this one random post I found from 2001. So I don't know. I mean, yeah. So that was interesting to see that it holds up still relatively well, except for screen quality. But I don't even know how much these things cost these days. I have no idea. It's been so long since I've looked at VR.
Yeah, I mean, I think
you can get a Quest 2 for like £150 or something.
Yeah, I think they're a little bit more affordable. It's just like I've just like not completely. One of my friends is like really into VR, and I'm just not like super sold on it. It's just like maybe it's a bit boomery. I'm not sure, but it's just like it's like it once it becomes more accessible, I think then I'll be more into it. But like it's a little too niche / gimmicky, I like because I'm not interested in it. Like if I was interested in it, then it probably would be one of those things because I'm like into selling Giga. Like I've become like a GitHub fanatic. Like any software solution I can think of, I just like add the search term plus GitHub in there to find an open source alternative because I just like love open source stuff. But yeah, because VR is kind of like it's just like finicky. I mean, I think the Quest products do try to like limit that, but like he's telling me you got to get like this third-party app store and like Meta, / the makers of Quest or whatever. They're like basically okay with it because of all the functionality it provides, but like technically it's like not. It might be breaking NDA or not NDA, warranties or yeah. I don't know, but we'll see. I'm like I said, they were both my friend who got my other friend into it that went from the 2 to the 3 that gave me their 2. They've been playing VR like almost every night, so it must be. And she was convinced to buy the Quest 3, so it must be pretty good. So we'll see. We shall see. I'm just gonna read through a couple other things if that's all right with you, Giga.
Yeah, no, keep going.
So I have not played any games yet. I ran into some technical issues. So I found this video. This is from Optimum, who has, oh, it says here it's number 22 on trending. Crazy. Who has excuse me, I got a bit of a cough and I'm out of water. Who does videos like gaming related, like hardware gaming, mice, monitor, keyboard reviews, things like this. And he has this video which interests me because I have this keyboard. It's called Wu Ting Responds to Razer's Qing Keyboard. I'm like, all right, well, that, first of all, that's a title in of itself, you know. That's something. But because I had this keyboard, I was like, all right, let me watch this, see what it's about. And I was just like kind of taken aback by the levels this industry, like PC hardware, has reached. You know, it's like, feels like some of the tech is like kind of plateaued a bit. Like, you know, we got mice that can reach up to 32,000 DPI, which is just like beyond overkill. You know, it's like the refresh rates, like they got trying to sell us on like 244. You know, it's like, but the numbers, if you're a professional player and you do this for a living, it probably makes sense. Otherwise, you don't need 244 refresh rate because you have to hit those frames to begin with. And like, you know, it's just like crazy stuff, right? I think it's 360, whatever. Doesn't matter. So a lot of the tech has been, you know, kind of like software related, kind of like, how can we make our products like for gamers to like, you know, you want this feature, gamer. Like a classic example that we've talked about in the past is the crosshair monitors, right? Where you can display a permanent monitor via your onboard software. You're on your monitor, you can display it, and which is like, you know, for Tarkov, not really that advantageous, we discussed, but there's aspects like this, right? And so what this is effectively, as I understand it, because this is, you know, kind of like a part 2 of a video, because his original video was about a Razer keyboard that basically lets you cheat. What this is software in the form of scripting, as I understand, where it allows you to, it's kind of technical, so you'll have to bear with me, but as I understand, because this keyboard that I have, it is, is it actually switch? I'm not sure. You can customize it. I'll just switch to this on so I can get like a little bit better of a visual representation for myself. So the trigger itself, you can manually adjust the activation point, right? Which with your atypical keyboard triggers, you can't. Depending on what type of switch you have, it has a fixed actuation point, right? Maybe it's like 1.5 millimeters, right? And then, you know, if like the cherry blue, it's like 1.5, and it's got this little tactile thing on it that like physically makes that clicking sound, right? And like the reds, for example, have like a much, I guess, lower, like a smaller actuation rate, so they activate with much more softer press. And then when you release the key, I think it deactivates once it reaches that threshold again. I'm not positive, but anyways, getting on to the tech, right? It is effectively allows you to, as soon as you can assign 2 keys, right? Which A and D would be the keys you want to assign. And once you press, let's say I'm pressing A, right? So I'm moving to the right, or sorry, D, and I'm moving to the right. As soon as I press A, it instantly, and whatever actuation point I set at, it instantly registers that and overrides the D command.
Yeah.
Which allows you to do some kind of mind-boggling things. Like there's different settings, and it's honestly kind of a hard concept to grasp. Like it took me a little bit to like understand it, and I still don't know if I fully understand it now, because I was like testing it and I'm like, okay, I don't really understand what this is doing for me, but I can kind of feel a difference. So in the video that's featured, Optimum, check them out. I like their stuff. Um, he talks about how you can use it in various games like Overwatch, Counter Strike, and I can't remember some other game. And but you're mainly going to see the benefit in Counter Strike because of its counter strafing mechanics. Like in Counter Strike, I actually went and recorded some footage because I was like, I gotta like try this out. When you strafe in Counter Strike, you your accuracy gets like horrible, right? This is
Yeah.
true for like Valorant or whatever. I loaded up Counter Strike Source, by the way, because I did not want to download 40 gigabytes of Counter Strike 2, but it still applies. And so, which there's a kind of like a skill ceiling in the game mechanics where you want to come to like a basically a full stop. Um, your movement kind of scales with your inaccuracy, like your accuracy, I should say. So to do that, you have to I let go of the movement key, right? Or what's more optimal is to do what's called counter strafing, where you press the inverse keys of your direction. So this is like it can get kind of like tricky too, because if you're moving diagonal, let's say you're moving forward and to the right, and you want to come to like the quickest optimal stop you possibly can to be the most accurate to fire at the target, you need to press the keys that are going to send your character to the left and backwards. But you don't want to hold them too long because if you do, then you'll start moving in that direction, which will make you inaccurate. So it's like you gotta like release those keys that you're moving in and then press the other keys, but just long enough that you counter the the mechanics here. Because it's kind of like a physics system, is how I
Yeah.
think of it and describe it. I don't know if it actually is. But the way this works is when it comes to, you can only assign two keys. The way this works is you can set it to override your your last input, right? Between these two keys. So it effectively mitigates any of that, microcosm of like skill check where you need to basically how it works is when you release your key, right? As you're releasing it in a standard keyboard, it's still being activated because your key has to travel up past the actuation point to register to the keyboard to your computer
Mhm.
that this key is no longer being pressed. So there's a little bit of a lingering movement that happens. I mean, we're talking like milliseconds, right? And then as you're pressing the other key, right, to go in the counter strafe, there's a little bit of a gap where the key's got to actuate, and then everything you're pressing down forward is just kind of like dead. It doesn't do anything. The key's already been activated.
Yeah.
It's like dead weight. Like maybe the most optimal way to play would be like in this scenario would be like just to barely push the key just enough to where it's activated. That way when you release, it's deactivated. So
Mhm.
what this does is it kind of removes all that, and it's like literally I as soon as I press the key, it just like it just works, and it's like super seamless. And I tried it and I toggled it on and off. I was like, I do feel a difference, and I kind of see it, but like because I'm not a Counter Strike player. There's like footage rolling right now of me shooting stuff. I've loaded up like a Dust 2 deathmatch server, and it's like whatever. But I can feel how like tight the movement is. Where it was like if you played
Yeah.
Counter Strike, you know how like slippery it feels,
Mhm.
especially if you try to counter strafe. Then it really like I was having trouble doing the diagonal movement, like going forward and at an angle and then stopping because it's like, oh, I gotta remember to like,
Mhm.
I can't just like
Let
let go
go.
of W and then counter strafe. I was like, no, I gotta let go of W and then counter strafe in the opposite diagonal direction. Like it's a little intriguing, but I think it is unprecedented, to my knowledge, that effectively, Razer kind of like started this that these companies, gaming peripheral companies, are developing software specifically tailored around game mechanics, Giga.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah, it's quite crazy.
technically you can use this in Overwatch. That was like the first thing I tried because I'm playing a lot, but I won't get into it. And because Overwatch has zero inertia, it's like old Tarkov. The fancy thing you could do is like spam AD, and it's like literally as soon as you hit the actuation point, um, it's inputting, and as soon as I hit the
Yeah.
actuation point and the other one, it's inputting. Like an interesting thing I can do. I tried it and it felt too gimmicky. I didn't really like it, but I can hold down D, right? And I'll be strafing to the right, and I can keep holding down D, and I can just tap A, and it will count, and it will like counter strafe for me. But I can always
Yeah.
keep my finger on D and just keep spamming A. I didn't really like that. Like it felt too. It was too much for my brain to process because I've never like done that before. But
Mm.
because it's like so instantaneous, like I can kind of see it, you know. I was testing it with a friend, but it's not really that advantageous. And then I went and tried it in Tarkov. Okay. And I was like, okay, so how's this gonna work with Tarkov? Because Tarkov has inertia. It's different. Doesn't really have counter strafing mechanics, but it's got inertia. So I was curious. I thought I would boot it up. I mean, on the footage here, I went and downloaded again some open source software to display through OBS, which is also open source, I believe, um, my key inputs.
I mean, my
Um,
guess is that it wouldn't work unless you set it up in like a different way because you have to circle strafe in EFD. So that's why, like, if you just go side to side, I don't think that would function. I don't think. Unless there's something special about like, cause I actually did skim watch this video, and it's like,
oh, you
oh,
did?
it's interesting. You basically can like tie two keys and make them mutually exclusive, so that you can't press one when the other's being pressed. It's like quite cool. It basically like prioritize new input, no mutual pressing. Like, huh, I see. So I was intrigued, but I thought to myself like, yeah, in Tarkov, this never going to work because you have to circle strafe to make it work. So I'm intrigued to see whether that's right or not.
Oh, I did. Did I not? Oh no, it's this one. It must be this one. I had multiple, or did I click on the wrong one again? No. Okay, here we go. So yeah, I was playing around the hideout, and yeah, I messed with various things. Like God, my I forgot how like dark and like weird Tarkov looks at times. And here I'm like spamming the keys in the circular motion, and I don't. There's like this weird like jerky movement, but I tried it by toggling it off the feature. I think it's called like SD, whatever, and it had the same behavior where it's like this weird jerkiness. And in my experience, I did feel that it was easier to. I mean, it isn't a Tarkov mechanic, but it was like easier to use the inertia system. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how to describe it. Like when I was using the without the feature, it was like ever so slightly a little bit more challenging. Um,
Yeah.
but this is the really interesting part that was unexpected. So you know how in Tarkov, right? And if you don't know this, you may be cursed with this knowledge. You know how in Tarkov, if you hold both A and D keys, it only accepts the D input.
Yeah.
This fixes that Giga, and I like it. Not that it really
Mm.
does anything, but it's because there is no counter strafing mechanics in Tarkov. But I was like, oh, this fixes that. That's kind of interesting. So I don't know if it's like I think for like games that don't explicitly have counter strafe mechanics, where if you're pressing one key, it's like applying force in a direction, and then when you press the other key, it applies that force in a direction, and those two forces cancel each other out if held together. Tarkov doesn't have that. Um, at least I'm fairly confident. And same with like Overwatch. I don't think Overwatch has that. I think you can like technically set that up in the settings, but it's not explicit. Like it doesn't even have inertia. I don't think it's that important. Like it's some people are saying in the chat, it's like an advantage for like peeking corners. Is like technically you're faster because we're talking like instant counter inputs. But I just feel like this is crazy. Why is the market they're developing software around game mechanics? I just
Yeah, I mean they'll do anything to sell product, I guess. Like,
it's crazy.
why? When are we going to start seeing inbuilt mice macros for like recoil and stuff? It's only I don't know. It feels like a matter of time at some point.
Yeah, it's as the video put it, they've automated the process of counter strafing, and so far it's not been banned by tournaments. And this is the other interesting part is that if I'm a tournament organizer and one of my big sponsors, mind you, is Razer, there's a bit of a conflict of interest in banning that hardware, right?
Hmm.
Because if they're sponsoring the event, they may not take too kind to me banning their brand new product they probably want to sell a lot of, right? And it's probably popular
Yeah.
because it is kind of like geared in this space where it's like, you want an edge? Here's an edge you can get that's not, it's just a hardware edge. It's just a better keyboard. It's just faster.
It's one of those things, though, isn't it? That's like it's one of those things where I think it's not necessarily like okay. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it probably is cheating, but it is undetectable. Other than just like not allowing the game to play with that particular hardware setup or something. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
It's like kind of a weird thing. It's like, what's that thing for the console, the Cronus thing that people use? Like a hardware cheating thing. It like reduces recoil. It's like does recoil for you or something. I can't remember. And that's like definitely, and that's cheating as
Right.
well, but it's hardware. It's different. I don't know. Yes, it's pretty bad. So because if you say that this stuff's okay, then well, yeah, you just program the stuff into the mouse, for recoil reducing scripts on whatever, like pre-patch Rust or CS or whatever, right? It's like, does that make this stuff okay? Like, I still think no, but it's a gray area because it's like how you could argue that a good monitor versus a bad monitor
Right.
is hard,
Yeah.
right? It's like you get into this weird thing.
GPU.
You can find like a guy playing on 40 frames versus 100 frames.
Right. Right. For sure.
It's like, performance is its own thing. I don't know. I guess it depends on like, and this is where the human element comes in. It's actually very hard to codify this stuff sometimes because
Mhm.
it often feels more about like intent. Like the 4090 wasn't designed to give people an advantage. Well, it's designed for performance, right? Give people a more powerful
Mhm.
hardware.
Mhm.
The intent is not to like target the counter strafe mechanic in Counter
Yes.
Strike Source and Overwatch.
That's
It feels very
yeah.
pointed. It's like it's hard to make a hard and fast rule for this kind of thing because it's like monitor with not like a monitor with an inbuilt crosshair, for example, feels like cheating because again that's very like pointed. If it's not designed, the game's not designed to have a crosshair, then you shouldn't really be using one on the monitor. But again, like it's undetectable, right? So there's two different things. It's like whether it should be counted or as cheating and be banned in these tournaments or not, and whether it's actually undetectable for the average user. Like these two things are different. It's not illegal to sell that product, but
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
against TOS to use it on that particular game.
Right.
But it's also not detectable by the company who's running the game. So it's like people are going to use it, but maybe you shouldn't be using it in tournaments. It's like visible, obvious. I don't know. It's a hard one. It's a hard one.
I just can't get over that. It's like we've reached this level. Like if someone knows of another example, I would love to hear it because I feel like I've never seen this where a very specific feature is developed around a very specific mechanic in a video game. Like it just because like this is interesting in the Overwatch footage. He's showing one of the new characters who I'm like so new. I've got like I've been playing Overwatch like on and off past 2 weeks. My friend got me into it regrettably, and this because when I was testing it with him, he was like, "Oh, try Farah," which she has like a jetpack, and he was wanting me to like do the strafe stuff in the air. But it has mechanics where it doesn't work, basically. Like your movement when you're flying is restricted, so you can't like spam AD when you're flying. And same with these a couple other heroes that were like this. However, this new hero that Overwatch released as like a testing, there was like a couple weeks where you could play them in unranked. They have like this ability where they can like float, I guess, like they got like little jet boots, and they can like counter strafe in the air. And it's funny because now it's like, oh my god, does Overwatch need to balance their game around this keyboard
Hardware,
mechanic?
yeah.
It's like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's mad. It is mad. It is mad.
I just can't. Okay, so we got to move on because we were already pressed for time. The other thing I looked into this week was audio stuff, equalizer stuff, open source, and I found this program that basically, I mean, there's a lot of really cool stuff. Like I'm such a goober for this stuff now, but I found this program that basically, um, like sets a profile, EQ profile for your headsets and applies different depending on what you want. You can select different um binaural spatial audio profiles, right? um and I thought, this is really interesting because in theory, you, no matter what game you're playing, you could simulate surround audio with this software. And I was thinking, oh, you could take this even a step further in a game like Tarkov, or I think even Overwatch has, any game that has an option to turn on their implementation of this technology, binaural audio, direction 3D simulated 3D directional sound. You could also just use this as well as a substitute. So you could like basically pick your own binaural audio, which is like
Is that like
interesting.
doable in some games?
Yes. Because it's all like, to be clear, the in-game implementation is going to be better in a general sense because they get to work with the source, right? This is simply applying EQ. Like, I'll see if I can pull up what's the name? This is simply applying. I mean, it's really something you got to experience too. Like, it's very bizarre. This is simply applying a virtualization of, similar to what the other technology is doing, but a virtualization of 3D through EQ, like different, messing with the different frequencies and levels. So, like, for example, Atmos is a type of Dolby Atmos 7.1 virtual surround sound. I'm familiar with it because I remembered there's a mod in Fallout New Vegas that implements Atmos. Like, the base New Vegas has, I think it's only left and right speaker, but even that's kind of screwy. I can't remember. But this like kind of, it like substitutes for that. So it allows you to have the 3D influence. Like, it's just, I don't know. I haven't used it because the layers I would have to go through, because like I recently just set up an equalizer for myself, my own personal mix tailored to my headphones. But what you can do through this, there's an app called Equalizer APO, which is kind of like the open source standard for setting up equalizers. It's kind of like in that banana meter area space. Audio stuff. It's a little. It can get a little tricky, especially if you're like completely new to it. But, anyways, I think this is super cool and like something I want to like try out and see what it's like. I have to like disable my current one, I believe, but you can you can find your headset. I'm trying to remember how I did that. I'd have to like take a play with it, but you can select your headset, which will be more tailored for, because yeah, I mean audio files in general, they're just like a that's like a space I would like to get into, but it's pretty technical heavy, and it's like
Mm.
kind of like, at least in my eyes, it kind of has like a little bit of a, a pristine, a snootiness about it. Like, I'm not saying that's true, but it's just like it seems kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't know, but um, it's interesting because yeah, it's like they getting like the perfect sound quality is not really gate kept. I just don't know. It's just like very like, because it's so like technical, it's like it's kind of harder to breach into, I guess. It's just like,
Just high barrier to entry.
yes, yes.
See, I can imagine something like this working for a New Vegas mod
Hmm.
because you're intercepting
Yes.
the audio. I'm highly skeptical that this will work with any game
Hmm.
where you are taking a stereo
Stereo.
output
Yeah.
and converting it into something else. I
Well, it's interesting.
can't see how that would ever work and actually be. It might sound okay, but it might sound okay, but actually be misleading, if that makes sense, right? Like it might sound all right, but be wrong.
Yeah, like it's not gonna,
EQ, I get. Like EQ's whatever,
for
right? If
sure.
you set up an EQ profile for your headset, that's fine. That doesn't mess around with like virtualization of audio, but you just don't have the information to rebuild the source. So I don't see how
Yes.
it's a lossy process, right? Going from the game engine's audio input to the output. It's like how do you go back again, right? I can't reconstitute the original image from the
Exactly.
Twitter web PNG, right? That information is now gone forever. No matter how much fancy AI I use on it, like some detail is going to be wrong and look different. Um, I yeah, I just don't think it'll work for Tarkov. But I can see that there's some. That's why I asked her, like, can you do this with some games? Like, are there games where they've got like the module is open? You know what I mean? It's like, here's your speakers,
Yeah.
here's the game engine, and they say, hey, look, here's the audio bit. Like, if you wanna, here's the base audio that we've got. Imagine some games that are like more open source or more like indie or whatever. I imagine that's like maybe
Hmm.
something that an enthusiast might have done, and say, look, you can plug your own engine in here if you want. We'll just take the wires and stick it in, and then pull it out and
Hmm.
stick it over
Hmm.
here. That would work, right? Because then you're using the information at source. As you said that would actually then be okay. But I just don't think you can do it the other way round, as far as I'm aware, unless you. The only thing I was thinking was just like, and this is probably not doable. There's probably too many solutions for it to actually function. But I was like, yeah, if you had the HRTF function, could you reverse engineer the HRTF function from the stereo? I think there's too much information lost. I don't think you could go back. There's probably too many. There's probably more than one unique solution for the answer. I think this is the problem, right? So you couldn't go and rebuild the. So you take the stereo. You know what HRTF function. It's a bit like in Photoshop, right? You have like a face that's blurred, but you know what blur algorithm was used, so you can just unblur it. So if it's like a lossless effect, you can so this is the police caught some guy for this, right? Because he like blurred his photo in something he posted online, and they just de-blurred him, and that there he was, right? Because it was like it wasn't a lossy process. So like if the process of HRTF was like not lossy in any way, and you knew what function they were using, you could in theory revert it back out again, right? You could reverse it back through the HRTF thing if there's one unique solution, which I also doubt. So it just feels like it wouldn't work for something like Tarkov because of that. And you've only got stereo output as well. It's not even like the
Yeah.
game's giving you like 5.1 or something. So you just don't have enough information to make it make sense. I don't know.
So to be clear, it's virtualization in that it's simulating the effect. It's never going to be as good as the real deal. Like what we have in Tarkov is better, asterisk. Like I would say,
It's the best it's gonna be, right?
huh?
It's the best it can be. Like, yeah, for its flaws,
Yeah,
but it's
like
working with the source material. So like even though it's not perfect, you're not gonna make it better with something else. You're just gonna make it worse. For directionality at least.
um I'm not sure. I don't know if I tracked what you're saying there.
Well, you were saying that,
Basically,
yeah.
basically, if you hated the audio pops, let's say, but you liked directionality, you could try this and use this. It's not going to be as good as binaural audio integrating the game because it has access to the source. But with this, because like these guys are like kind of like really nutty. Man, I'm trying to. I can't remember the keywords, but there's these device like they have measurements, Giga, where actually let me just pull up what is it called? Auto EQ. So they have just pick some random headphones. Okay, so how do I target? Let's see. Harman in-ear 2019. Harman in-ear 2019. So this, oh, why can't I see it? Oh, that's so annoying. What is the name of it? Okay, wait, 2 seconds. All right, so let me just pull up my headsets. Wait, Audio Technica. ATH dash. All right, cool. So we need, okay, GRAS. Okay, here it is. Look at this thing. For the audio listeners, it is some, I swear I had a picture of this. I don't remember where, but it is some weird looking device of like a, like a simulated, like Teflon human ear on like a little tiny circular disc with like a looks like a satellite dish pointed towards the ear. This is like some type of like measuring device. Like I don't even know what's going on. Like it's just like this is like such a whole nother world. But apparently there's like all these various different products that are used to like simulate a human ear for like measurements. And so what they do is they take these various headsets and calibrate them to like the standardization of all these different products for different, simulating different human ears. So what they've done is integrated that into this virtualization. So where you can pick your headsets, right? And like I have done. And so these headsets have now been calibrated based off this model for an ear, right? It may not be one to my ear, but from my testing, there's like a 3D surround sound test you can do. I can tell the difference between front speaker and rear speaker and, left rear speaker, right rear speaker, or right, left, rear, front, rear, or God, yeah, that whatever. Too many stuff, and but it's all virtual, like it's all fake, so to speak. Like it's only done through EQ mixing. I don't know. It's just like super. I don't even know. I guess there is some software, but how it does it, I'd have to watch a video to be like. I need to like
It's all
educate
HRTF.
myself.
All of this stuff is HRTF at the end of the day.
Yes, at the end of the day, absolutely, yeah. But it's just super interesting because this is like almost like a universal solution if you wanted that. Like I could see. It wouldn't surprise me if there's some audiophile who's like, I have the perfect headset and like I've perfectly calibrated, the EQ mix based off my ear. Because I think it was Veritas was talking about how there are some people who HRF TF doesn't like work or like work well, and it's usually based off their like the shape of the ear. Like it's just like different, and that affects how you perceive stuff. So directionality, it's super interesting stuff, and something I want to like see what it's like. Maybe I'll finally discover how broken Tarkov audio is once I try this method. I don't know. It. Who knows what's gonna happen? Find out next week.
I do love all that stuff. It's so clever. Like, you're basically like using the brain
Mm.
Well, you're reverse engineering the brain to do. It's like like virtual VR is like replacing your eyesight with screens. HRTF is replacing your ears with sound. You've got like headphones over your ears because your earlobes are no longer being used for directionality at all. You've just got flat sound being played into your eardrum. Okay, that's great. But like you need to then simulate the ear itself, like the outer ear, to then because that's how your brain understands the sounds, right? So if you could put a microphone in your ear and record stuff front and back, even just in mono in one ear, and then you played it back in that one ear, it would then sound like front and back because that's what your brain's expecting to hear. You're simulating it going through the skin layer, and your brain understands what that means. It's like hijacking the brain's
Yeah.
own like signal processing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is crazy, by the way. That's a crazy thing. But you're hijacking the brain signal processing to get it to do the thing that it should do to make the audio sound amazing. Like weird, like super weird stuff, right? Like, if you take two frequencies, two notes that are very like a semitone apart, let's say, but it can be even closer. And as you have got these two waves that are like nearly the same, but not quite, they go through destructive and constructive interference as they overlap. And as they get out of sync, they start like, it gets like you get this ringing pattern basically on when you do this kind of stuff because it's kind of hard to describe, but like you've got a sound wave is like very fast, so the actual frequency of a sound wave is very very high. But if you've got two sound waves that are like close but not quite match, they'll like match, and then they start to unmatch, and then they go back to matching again, and then they unmatch, and then they go back to matching because like the peak of one slowly dislocates, right, and then it'll match with the next peak as it comes in. Do you know what I mean? Like these two things
Right.
move
I'm
together.
tracking.
So the closer the frequency is of these two waves,
Mm.
the slower the ringing effect it actually is, and you get this like
Oh my God.
sound, right? And that happens in real life. But what's absolutely insane is if you play one in one ear and the other wave in the other ear, you still get the ringing because your brain knows how to combine the two signals together.
Whoa.
Somehow it knows how to constructively and destructively interfere the waves in your head.
That's crazy. My brain's an audio processing machine.
Yeah, it is. It's a great audio processing machine. So HRTF basically like hijacks this mechanism. The fact the brain basically knows how to do all this stuff as if it's in real life to simulate the audio. Like it's crazy. It gives me like it makes my hair stand up on end.
That's pretty cool.
But like it's crazy the fact the brain could do that. Like you'd imagine that both notes would just be flat and just play against each other with no beating. It's really really strange. But the fact that there's a beat between the two, then there's a brand note. Yeah, let's not go there. Let's not even go there. By the way, the new task has just appeared. It is 66A1A880 name and name description in mine. Mine's broken. I probably need to restart the game. Logical Solutions has posted up. Apparently, it is eliminate raiders in the lab. 0 out of 57. Eliminate PMC operatives in the lab. 0 out of 23. You get 200,000 XP. Some Jaeger rep. 2.3 million rubles. You unlock a barter for the Echo 1, the GPMVG, the Zeus Pro, the Reap IR, and the T7 thermal goggles. So depending on what those barters are, it kind of starts to sound like the end of the wipe.
Yeah, I'd say so.
With the GL on Peacekeeper and then a bunch of barters turning up for like thermal scopes, you think, it's gate kept behind 57 raider kills and stuff. So like it's a bit of a marathon to do this, and you have to complete it by Monday. It's like that's actually quite difficult. But yeah, it's like it's sort of one step towards it. So I don't know. Maybe early August is coming sooner than we think. I don't know. We'll have to see. Shall I quickly whip through the very last bit for me?
Yeah, go
I'll
for
be very,
it.
very fast. I'm basically done with the Big Pockets quest. Pretty much done all of it. It's not actually that hard. You have to basically kill people who are wearing big backpacks, but that happens just sort of automatically. You don't really have to think about it. Then circulate, which is weird. You have to sell Ragman 250 bags. But it's
Just
annoying because you don't... Yeah, and rigs.
Oh my God.
He's like, let's get the market going.
Challenge.
Come on. Yeah, it's basically a stash management challenge but now because there's personal limits on everything, you can't do it in one go.
Oh,
Because it's like you can buy 3 of this, 3 of that, 3 of the other. You can just buy the things off the flea, but like, they're like 20, 30, 40k once you've bought out the first bottom section. So you're like, kind of just wait for the reset, do it a couple of times. That's basically it.
There's only so many tea bags in demand.
Yeah, exactly. And people just don't sell those things, right? Because they're not normally very valuable. People don't bother. Then there's the one quest there's the two quests that are actually interesting, the two in the middle. The first one is like really hard, and this is why I ended up killing the goons. Amazingly, like I didn't think I was going to do this one, but I managed to complete it. And it's called Special Offer. You basically have to hand in Tegila's rig, find him raid, Sanitar's bag, find him raid. I kept both of those things, so I didn't have to do them. I just handed them in straight away because I'm paranoid about Sanitar's bag. Then you have to hand in Knight's CPC armor. I think it is. I think it's the Knight's one. The Bird Eye, like London Bridge trading, like whatever it's called, the the really efficient
radio backpack.
The radio backpack. It's both.
Oh my god!
So it's two things from Bird Eye and one from Knight.
That means you can't do it all in one go, or can you?
Well,
I guess you have to drop your gear. Sorry, I'm getting ahead.
Yeah, you can. It was an epic raid. I actually put it in my FAL video that I just put out. It's like one of the ending raids towards the end, because it was like I was like almost tempted to make it its own thing, but I was like, I'm not going to do that. Actually, like it's hard to make that kind of thing work, and I have to spend like a long time on it to structure the narrative and like, do all the stuff. So I ended up just putting it in the FAL video. But it was crazy. Like when I fought with some guy for a bit, but he ended up getting like jumped by scavs. I went to Fortress, found. Well, actually, the way I knew is I went through the there's like the blue container like by parking that allows you to get into the kind of construction-y like skeleton building. I went through there, and Knight just like made a beeline for me, and I killed him like straight up, like as he came through the hole in the wall towards Fortress. So I was like, oh, okay, they're actually here. It's interesting. And ended up killing Big Pipe as well, a bit like just outside around the corner, because he normally like chases you down. So like chat was like, yeah, Bird Eye's probably still in Fortress. Like he doesn't normally like rush at you like that, or like he can, but if he doesn't, then he's probably in there. So I like went in, had to go and like do a bunch of grenades and blah blah. Found him on the set stairs and killed him. And yeah, exactly what you were saying happened. I had a tri-zip. You've got to take like the Mystery Ranch 1 com bag or whatever it's called. It's some huge bag, and it's super heavy, and it's like really awkward because it's like 3x8 or something really, or 2x8. It's like, I think it's 2x8. It's like really awful, this bag. And so then you got to like try and take the armor vest and also the rig, and I like couldn't fit all of them in the tri-zip, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to do 2 raids where I kill the goons and get the items fighting raid. Like, oh, that sucks. I was like, if I'm gonna take out anything, I'll throw the night rig away, and I'll wear Bird Eye's like vest and backpack, because then at least I don't have to kill Bird Eye. I could just kill Night in another raid. And people were like, you should just try and find a pilgrim. So anyway, we end up in a fight with our original guy, but he's got that like Eber stock, or whatever it's called, the Eber stock. There's like that really big bag, but it's split into like 3 segments. There's like, it's a 2x whatever, and then a big section at the top. It's called like the Ebel stock, like F3 Terminator or something. I can't remember its like exact name. It's one of those. And I like, because we saw him with this huge bag, and I was like, whoa, couch bag, like this is going to be sick. And I managed to kill him by like being really careful. Go over to it, and I'm just like, no, it's the wrong bag. This doesn't help. Oh God, I can't fit the thing in because it's all split up into different segments. So I can't fit the rig in. Like, this sucks. So anyway, people were like, oh, maybe you got to go and find a pilgrim from a scav or something. And I was just like, what are the chances of that? I literally like walk back through the blue container where the guy was like fighting people like at the beginning. There in the middle of the street, a pilgrim thrown down by a player earlier in the raid. Everyone was like, today is blessed by Nikita, like actually. So I just like ran over, grabbed the pilgrim, run back in. I'd like left all the stuff in Fortress because it was like too hard to move. So I went back, like took the all the things from Night. I had the Night one on, and then I had the bag and the rig in the backpack, and then like escaped ASAP out of RUAF and completed it and handed it in. So I was like actually a really sick raid, like 1 PMC kill, all 3 of the goons in one go. I completed the goons quest as well because I hadn't even killed any of them up until that point. So it was like an insane raid on customs. I was like, this is so cool. So that was like really good fun. And then I'm on the basically the final one. There's 2 more, but the second to last one is you have to kill 5 bosses that are not the goons whilst wearing any of the goons like armors or rigs. So it's either Bird Eye's rig or any of the 2 armors from Big Pipe or Night. So
you can buy those off the flea. Yeah,
you can buy them off the flea, so that's not really that hard. Yeah, some of them are expensive. It's not too bad. Like, they're actually not that much. Like the Night one is basically a CPC. And it costs like 200,000. So just buy that. It's fine. I was trying to kill Tegilla, but I just kept dying. I managed to shoot him with a P90 with R37F, and I managed to deal 1,980 damage to
That's
him.
the flesh rounds, yeah, or like one of them,
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah. And he has apparently has he's basically got 2,100 HP, something like that, or like
Yeah, that's
2,040
crazy.
HP. I was like 60 HP off killing him. He was on
Yeah.
like the sliveriest sliver of health, and he managed to kill me. He just blunt damage with BT through my 6 and 3, right? And I was shooting him in the leg, and we were both just like, grrr. It was like, some weird anime. I had like 17 hits to the plate, and I shot him like 14 times or something. It was like really, really odd. So the one I've had most success with is killing Kollontai. I've actually been enjoying killing Kollontai. It's actually quite fun. So I'm on like 3 out of 5 for that. Just got to finish that. Once you do that, you just have to hand in 15 bitcoins, and that's it. So I've already got those saved up. So I'm like nearly at the big pockets quest. So at least it's kind of fun. It's kind of interesting. I was like, man, how am I ever going to do this goons one? But that's probably like the most interesting one out of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
You want to think about it in that way. The other ones are like not that hard. But it's not that long. The quest line's not too bad, but it opens up at level 35. The first bit, Invisible Hand, you only get level 35. So until then, you can't do it. So everyone else could be running around with double pockets, Unheard Edition, until you're at least level 35, at which point you can start to go towards it. But I mean, it's unrealistic to go and kill the goons earlier anyway.
You'd have to just every wipe, correct?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so. As I understand it. Yeah.
I when you were telling the story about the goons, in the Pilgrim, I was immediately thinking, oh my god, someone's like setting up with a sniper for Shooterborn. It's like waiting for you so you can pick up the bag. But nope, it was safe.
Yeah, I was kind of like, I can only get like 2 things out of this raid.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to still have to kill at least Bird Eye or Knight. I was like, this just sucks either way. So I was like, I'd almost rather just risk it and try and get it done. I'm basically going to have to kill all 3 of them anyway if I have to go back in, right? So I was like, I may as well just risk it, just try and get all of them done and risk dying and getting 0, because I'd almost rather like risk 3 and get nothing than like leave with like 1 or 2 items. It's like, it feels pointless to take that extra 1 when like items 2 and 3 are so hard to do. So yeah, I don't know. It's okay. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Kind of fun.
Battle of
I
the
used
DPSs.
Yeah. I used the PKP on Kollontai.
I was going to ask, what did you end up going? Because you got to use one. Well, I guess you don't have to, but it's basically
I got one
you
from
have to. I was going to say
do which, sorry?
I was going to say you basically have to use a weapon that can't jam.
Well, this is what I thought, and it turns out the PKP can jam, as I found out to my ultimate horror as he ran towards me. It's the RPD that doesn't. The PKP does jam. That's the really big one that you can't buy, right? It's the one from Kaban.
Yes.
The one for guns. Yeah, but you get it from the Prapor quest. So I was like, let's just use this. This will be fun. 5 minutes later, I'm like running through the halls of the shopping centre screaming with Kollontai running after me with his baton and me going like trying to desperately unjam this 14-kilogram gun.
And you're just dead, right? Like you just can't unjam it, right? Because as soon as you unjam it, it jams again, yeah?
If you're in his range, yeah. It's
so you have to outrun him then.
Yeah. The only thing that I did have was I actually had the RSH revolver with me.
Oh,
because I just thought it'd be kind of funny. I had to finish the killing scouts with pistols in the center, so I was like, well, I'll take this with me. So I was like, I can use that because that doesn't jam.
Malkop, I think it's called, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. So I finished that one, and I was like trying to get a headshot on him with PS12B, but I couldn't quite get it to work. I ended up killing him with the PKP, but yeah, I was like, oh, at least I have the option. I can, if he's rushing me, I can always swap to it, and I've got 6 shots to try.
That's true. That's probably a decent strategy if you didn't want to commit to a PPSH or RPD, which can't really fault anyone.
Like
for
PPSH, RPD, double barrel shotgun, the revolver shotty, the RSH 12, the like tiny little revolver like Rhino in 357 or 9mm. I think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it. Basically, like anything that doesn't put a round in the chamber, like the way the Tarkov's mechanics work, is anything that doesn't put a round in the chamber, or actually no, that's just it. That's the rule. Anything that doesn't put a round in the chamber. The revolvers don't, and neither do anything that's open bolt.
You could use the GL rule, the revolver GL 40.
Oh, I wonder if you could.
It can't jam. It's a revolver.
Yeah, the big one from Big Pipe.
The cylinder. So, man, can you
I
even
wonder if the
jam?
normal GL. I wonder if the
Yeah,
UV can jam. Like
that's what
we did.
I'm wondering.
That was suggested, and I was like, I just don't want to use it because it's like bad.
Yeah,
It's probably just not going to kill him. I hit him square in the face. He's got so much HP. He'll probably just live. You know, I'd like
yeah,
knowing Tarkov's nade mechanic. So yeah, there's that. But like, it's fun. Yeah, it's all right. There's like a lot to do. I've got 6 bear dog tags left for the trophies, Jet. To get M61 on the craft. We're gonna get there inevitably, like 36 hours before the wipe or something. We're not
yes,
even gonna be able to get one craft in. We'll like
yes.
go into raid, shoot one scav, and then the game will go down. You know, quite funny.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, apparently these, rewards, them being thermals. I mean, it might. I guess they're unlocks to buy them at low level for this latest event, but I don't know. It might. I mean, I just feel like give it like 2 weeks. I think we'll have a lot more information about
Yeah,
future
we'll know.
plans.
We'll know once it starts getting crazy. We'll know. But it's like
Mhm.
kind of interesting this is happening now. I guess this is now and then it's finishing Monday. Like it would be so sick if it wiped on the 1st. Honestly, that'd actually be really good for me.
Yeah, I remember you have. In fact, 2 weeks is probably bad for you, but yeah.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now would be the worst timing possible.
Sorry, I spoke it into existence.
Which it did last year. So
it's okay. You really. It's like you just never know if BSG.
exactly, we can't tell, and they probably don't know either.
Yeah, and that's not like a disparaging thing on them. It's just the nature of the beast, right?
Nature of game dev.
Yeah.
How it goes. How it goes. Yeah, well, someone in chat was saying what it adds up. The number of PMC kills plus raider kills adds up to 80. It's like it's a weird number, you know? So reverse that and it's the 8th of August. 08.
Oh God.
We'll see.
All
We'll
right.
see.
I think that's gonna conclude it for today's cast. I am extremely thirsty. I gotta go grab some water. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and as always, we'll catch you next week.
Bye bye.